How many copies of that record would I have to sell to actually make money? The record retailed for $18 before inevitable discounts, but for the sake of this exercise, let's use the full price. $8 of that goes straight to the retail store selling physical CDs, which leaves 10. If my royalty percentage were a not uncommon 14%, I'd get $1.40 from that wholesale price. If my royalty rate were a fairly high 19%, I'd get $1.90 for a CD sold. If I had a big name producer on the record, then I'd typically be obliged to give 3% to him or her because producers get paid off the top, not after I go into profit. Really big producers get advances too. T-Bone Burnett often gets an advance in the six figures, which comes off the artist's royalty share, though many artists would say that he is well worth the price. Sounds like a tough racket selling CDs and making money for David Byrne from the book How Music Works. Oh, I didn't see you guys come in. I guess it's time for another episode of Bitcoin Talk Show. Let's see what's going on in the world of Bitcoin today. The price of Bitcoin was down 1.51% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 6,769, a high of 6,887, and a low of 6,676. That's $1 for 14,798 Satoshis as we creep closer and closer to the 15,000 Satoshi barrier, which is not a good thing to drift towards. Dead cat bounce? Bitcoin price recovery could be short-lived. From Coindesk.com. Bitcoin is looking to regain its poise after its drop to 2-month lows on Sunday, but the recovery may be short-lived, the technical charts indicate. At press time, BTC is changing hands at $6,825 on Bitfinex, up 3% from the 2-month low of 6,619. The recovery conditions could be associated with extreme oversold conditions highlighted by the relative strength index yesterday and could be extended further in the next 24 hours. However, crossing 7,000 in a convincing manner will be easier said than done, as the area around the psychological hurdle is packed with key technical resistance lines. Further, the long duration charts have turned bearish, so holding on to gains above 7,000 will be a challenge for Bitcoin's bulls. Hence, the recovery could turn out to be a dead cat bounce, a temporary recovery in a bear market that is followed by the resumption of a downtrend. And as you can see on the daily chart right here, according to the lines that they've drawn on the chart, we have broken through the pennant. We have a pennant breakdown, as you can see here, where the high, the low, and the low link together, but now we are below those two lows. So the triangle doesn't work anymore. On the hourly chart, we see that the 38.2 Fibonacci retracement of the latest leg down in prices is $7,008. So we are below that. What's more, the cryptocurrency is struggling to find acceptance above 6,859, the 23.6 Fibonacci retracement. The failure to beat a less important Fibonacci hurdle only indicates how tough it could be for Bitcoin to scale $7,008, the 38.2% Fibonacci hurdles. If the bearish moving averages could also complicate the recovery in Bitcoin prices, the 50-hour, 100-hour, and 200-hour moving averages are all trending south, indicating a bearish setup. Meanwhile, the long duration charts are biased to the bears as well. It's looking bad. Let's go straight to the view. A minor corrective rally could be in the offing, but will likely run out of steam above 7,000. The broader outlook remains bearish, with Bitcoin likely to test 6,000 in a week or two. Only a daily close above the 10-day moving average, currently seen as 7,376, would abort the bearish view. So that doesn't sound so good. Bitcoin hasn't hit bottom, cryptocurrency trader says. Cryptocurrency trader Ran Nu Nair says that Bitcoin hasn't bottomed yet, but it's still a good time to buy and hold if you believe in the long-term value. Nu Nair says Bitcoin could go to $20, $30, or $40, or even $50,000 a coin. And then no one cares whether you bought it at $5,000 or $6,000. That is a good point. You've only lost $1,000 if it went from 6,000 to 5,000. Of course, unless you have more than one Bitcoin. Bitcoin technical analysis. BTCUSD was lifted somewhat above a demand zone that came to the rescue. Price attempting to break down near-term 6850 resistance and the 50-day moving average. The Bitcoin price is still very much stagnant on Tuesday after the heavy selling pressure over the weekend. Down 0.85 on Tuesday. The Bitcoin USD chart is encountering near-term resistance seen at 6850, the 50-day moving average on the 60-minute chart. No clear signs yet for a shift back into the bulls' favor or whether the bears will resume pressure. Interesting side note, do you know why they're called bulls and bears? They're called bulls because of the horn of the bull charging upward. It looks like an upward swipe. They're called bears because of the great paw of the bear swiping downward, a downward swipe. So it's not just the character of the animals, it's the direction of which they attack. The bull pointing his horn upward, the bear swiping his paw downward. Interesting side note. This could be the next best thing for the Bitcoin price. What's it going to be? Some of the world's biggest trading platforms and exchanges, at least two, are announcing that they will allow large investors to buy and hold Bitcoin. Intercontinental Exchange, ICE, the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange, has revealed last month that they've been developing an online platform to buy cryptocurrency. Meanwhile, NASDAQ, which entered into a partnership with crypto exchange Gemini in April, is also planning on launching a futures market for cryptocurrencies. These two will be joining the CBOE Global Markets and the CME Group, which have already begun issuing cryptocurrency futures. So more Wall Street money is on its way. Let's see if they just want to short us to death this time like last time. Proof that Bitcoin still can't be trusted. Once again, this guy doesn't understand Bitcoin. It's not the value that's safe. Yes, it's a store of value. That means it stores value. But that value doesn't always stay the same. What's important is that there is value there. The part that you're trusting is that they can't steal your Bitcoin. The price that you trade them for USD is always moving. That's not the trust part. You're putting the trust part in the wrong place. Your article is misguided. Please learn more. Wells Fargo bans credit card purchases of Bitcoin. Who knew it took them this long? Apparently, you still could buy Bitcoin on your Wells Fargo card. It only makes sense for the banks and the credit cards to do this. It's not just an anti-Bitcoin move. I believe they're mainly covering their asses. The banks know that if you borrow a lot of money and buy a speculative instrument such as Bitcoin, you might lose all your money. If you lose all your money, you might not pay them back. The banks need to take steps to ensure that they'll be paid back. Additionally, the banks are betting against an outside chance that you would sue them and say, "How could you let me invest my money in this speculative Bitcoin? You should have protected us, banks." And the banks can't have that either. So they've decided to get rid of Bitcoin, at least on their credit card purchases. Most banks still allow you to buy normal Bitcoin with your debit card with the money that you actually have. It's interesting to see banks making a differentiation between the money you actually have and your theoretical money, since the banks don't actually have any money. They only have theoretical money. It's okay if they do it. It's not okay if you do it. That seems like a double standard. Why Bitcoin and cryptos are not safety nets. Once again, the price goes up and down. If you had it in December, it would have been a great safety net. I remember my runway was very long in December. If you still have that Bitcoin now, like I do, your runway got a lot shorter, but that's not to say that it went away. The idea here is that Bitcoin has a small dip and everyone gets out all of their negative arguments about Bitcoin. It's not a store of value. It's not a safety net. It's not anything. Well, sure, it's not anything when it's down because you guys are all depressed about it and you're trying to depress people more. Alternatively, when Bitcoin's going up, they can't stop saying good things about it, how great it is. But mainly they're focused on the FOMO there. They're like, why didn't you invest? Why didn't you invest? Well, because the banks were screaming about how bad it was 3 years ago. 3 years ago or 5 years ago, whatever, when we all invested or when we all got into Bitcoin, but some of us, um, why didn't you invest? Because you were warning about it. And now, like, now that it's up, now you're telling people to invest. Now that it's down again, you're warning people again. So once again, you can't listen to this. These are mixed signals. If you want to take the risk on Bitcoin, you might see the reward. If you don't want to take the risk, you're never going to see the reward. So as long as you're happy with what you've got, because that's what you've got is all you'll ever get. Something like that. It's a song lyric. Another U.S. Bitcoin trader faces prison for illegal money transmission. And this is part of a larger story. And I think we need to pay a lot of attention to this. Local Bitcoins isn't the local Bitcoins that it used to be. Many of the people that you're trading with on local Bitcoins may or may not be police officers. This means it's very important if you're going to do some trading on local Bitcoins that you understand the money laundering laws. I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving you advice, but there are money laundering laws. There are certain limits that you'll want to stay under. There are certain rules where the money comes from. If they tell you the money comes from a legal operation, you are not allowed to take that money because you would be contributing to the legal operation. If you don't know, then you don't know. But it's important to have deniability. This LA woman called the Bitcoin Maven was convicted for selling Bitcoins without a license, which is not really a crime. It may be the size, the amount that this lady was selling. They say she made, and this is profits presumably, $300,000 a year annually selling Bitcoin on the peer-to-peer exchange Local Bitcoins. Wow, she processed around $6 to $9.5 million worth of Bitcoins. I wonder, are they using the proper values on that? I can only assume that they are, but it would be incredibly unfair to have someone selling at around $300 a coin and then to fast forward to the future and assume that the coins are worth 20K. That's not really fair. Let's see. She's pleaded guilty, and her defense is asking for 1 year in prison for her wrongdoings. The judge they've asked to sentence for 30 months, so we're talking about a 6 months difference. So it's not that bad. U.S. law enforcement continues to arrest local Bitcoin sellers for selling large quantities of digital assets without permission. Kind of thought we had the permission to do that, but I don't know the specific laws. I think money transmission, excuse me. Money transmission probably kicks on when you go through the larger barriers, things like $100,000. Additionally, people might want to have multiple accounts on local Bitcoins, but just saying. This was another case in the series where Morpheus was arrested by Homeland Security in Arizona for the same crime. An Ohio man named Daniel Merced was arrested in May of last year for selling large quantities of Bitcoin overseas. Richard Pettix from New York, another trader, was found guilty of selling Bitcoin and charged with illegal money transmitting business and making false statements. This past February, there was another instance where the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Homeland Security, arrested Morgan Raccoons, aka Morgan Rockwell, in Las Vegas, Nevada, for a Bitcoin transaction from November 2016. That month, Raccoons was charged with unlicensed money transmitting business and money laundering. In part of the arrest, they're asking for a forfeiture of 40 Bitcoins confiscated during her arrest and 25 gold bars. What do you guys think in the audience? Should Bitcoin sellers be sent to prison for selling Bitcoin? Is this money laundering? Or is it just money exchange, currency exchange? Why is it so different for the people at the top to do it versus the people at the bottom? I guess they have licenses. I don't know. They're saying in the chat that anything over $10,000 has to be reported. It is important to report your gains and losses and to pay your taxes. I support everybody. I say everybody should do that. I don't know the specific case if this lady reported her taxes, but it is a developing story. It is something that's ongoing, and sadly, it's probably made people lose trust in local Bitcoins. So I don't know what you should do to get your Bitcoin if you want to get them pseudo-anonymously. You want to buy them with cash. You probably have to make personal relationships and meet people. And even then, if you're selling to someone, you need to be careful about selling to them. So it's a complicated and tough world out there. There's a lot of rules and laws, and you should make sure you follow them because otherwise this could happen. This web app shows the power of Lightning Network and a lot of dicks. When life gives you lemons, when life gives you lemons, you draw penises with them. And here it is, the Lightning Network drawing page. You can see someone's drawn Roger Ver over here. There's an exploding one right here, a little Satoshi riding the exploding one, a photorealistic picture of Dorian Satoshi Nakamoto. So this was a cool thing. I guess you could draw a couple of pixels or something for a few dollars on the Lightning Network. It's a neat way to try out the Lightning Network, and it's reminiscent of Reddit's single pixel thing that they did last time, where you could draw pictures like this as a group. And it looks pretty fun. It's a nice way. The piece of art, he says here, costs him 4 cents. If you want to paint the entire canvas red, it will cost you $67. That's not bad. So that's pretty fun. Neat, neat little art project. And they had the link to this. Oh, it's called Satoshis.place. If you want to check it out, it's called Satoshis.place. So that's pretty cool. And it's once again, thanks to everyone who donated to the Mad Bitcoin's desktop computer drive. I'm using my computer right now. It's fantastic. And thanks for sending your donations to the Bitcoin address on your screen right now. We have collected 0.62 Bitcoin towards our goal of 0.36. So we did it. Great job. Thanks everyone for your support. As always, you could donate to the QR code on your screen right now. Or you could subscribe to the Patreon at patreon.com/worldcryptonetwork, where we've raised $77 a month for the network. And my personal Patreon, Mad Bitcoins, has raised $433. Good job. And we're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines right now. If you'd like to give us a call, you can call us right now on Skype at one word, World Crypto Network, all one word. We're opening up the Skype lines. I do have to add you as a friend on Skype, but go ahead and add me, and I will add you back. Accept. There it is. Accept there. More people want to connect me, which is great. And also, if you catch the show later and you want to add me on Skype, maybe you'll be online next time. That's always a good idea. If you want to install Skype right now, maybe you haven't. Maybe you're not a Microsoft fan. Maybe you just I never really chatted with people that far away very much, so it never came up for me that often. But I like using it for this. It's really worked out well for what we do here. And we'll just turn it on right now. And I had one more topic I wanted to bring up and talk about. I didn't want to show this guy's name on the screen. He didn't really say that I could use his name, but he wrote me a question about net neutrality. And I wanted to bring up his points, and I wanted to bring up my points, and then I wanted to ask you, as the law has actually passed through, they've actually taken net neutrality away right now, and well, let's talk about it. Let's see what he says. So Jim writes, and he says, "You campaigned strong for net neutrality some months ago. I find great value in your broadcasts and opinions since July 2017, when I started paying attention to you and was so influenced by all of your opinions, not just Bitcoin. However, I'm no expert in net neutrality. I hope to find info efficiently so I don't remain ignorant, but regarding the bad consequence of layering the service quality that was predicted, I heard more than one respected party point out that this might be a consequence of just a few powerful parties having a virtual monopoly on internet access because of net neutrality, which I disagree, may or may not be a deceptive, nice moniker pasted over a monopolistic policy. One of these parties expressed it this way: how did we ever get into the situation where access to the internet is controlled by only a few? We'll talk about that. That's ISPs. As I look for answers and watch the situation closely as everyone else who earns their living from the internet in America, I have in my mind your passionate and well-expressed defense of net neutrality to hopefully help me find good answers as to whether today was an extremely bad day or a promising one. Thanks for the educational work you do, and I hope you travel some more and keep up the good work." So thanks so much, Jim, for your question. And thanks for talking about net neutrality. I'm going to read my response, and then we'll just talk more openly. And hopefully, you guys can call in or write into the chat with your opinion on net neutrality, and we'll discuss this. So, what I said, and I tried to think about this a little bit and write a good response to Jim. So I said, net neutrality creates a level playing field of opportunity. Without it, the companies who control the pipes would receive all the power. It's obvious why corporations want it and would lie about it on TV. Much of our society is about destructive competition, but the internet doesn't have to be. It's a sad day, like when we lost the right to make our own television and radio stations. All new communications technologies start out democratic and are rolled back into monopolies. And it's sad to see the internet following this track. And for me, I really see it this way. I see that the internet, the computer geeks got together and they created an open platform. And net neutrality is another way of saying equal access to the open platform. Everything should be a level playing field. If you're Facebook, if you're Twitter, if you're a brand new competitor to Facebook, your data should go at the same speed. This has allowed incredible innovation on the internet. This allowed Facebook to kill MySpace. This allowed MySpace to kill Friendster. I mean, AOL Instant Messenger went up and down. All of these things are because of the open access to the platform. If you don't like AOL Instant Messenger, you can make ICQ, you can make Yahoo Messenger. They can all compete against each other. And recently they all shut down and closed because people use other chat programs now or websites or whatever. But still, these programs had a chance. If you change net neutrality and you remove access to the level playing field, it means that the internet is now a place that you have to pay to try out your idea. Before, you could be Zuckerberg in a dorm room, write this little hot or not thing, write this little Facebook thing, and you could try out your idea right there on the internet, and you'd get just as good a tryout as you were if you were AT&T or a giant company with incredible resources. Now, you'll have to pay to try out your application. So this limits the amount of innovation. This limits who can innovate. So I actually made the poorer for this. Now, a little bit of politics here. Is net neutrality socialist? Probably. I mean, I really, we have this thing in our society. We try to be anti-socialist. At the same time, FDR implements Social Security, other retirement programs. Nobody wants to see what we had in the 20s and 30s, which was old people out on the street. If you think a homeless man's sad, wait till you see an 80-year-old man that's homeless. It's even sadder. That's what FDR was trying to fix. Did he make the country go a little socialist to try to fix that? Undeniably, yes. America, as much as everybody likes to be pure and you have very strong political opinions, you're 100% no socialist or 100% yes socialist, whatever. America is a mixture. We are a mixture of capitalism. We are a mixture of socialism, and not in a negative way, in a helping people way, not in a communist way. But again, you can debate that. You can discuss that as politics. It's up to you. But what they did with net neutrality is they created a level playing field. Socialist idea, completely socialist. But once they did that, it became a capitalist idea as well, because anyone could compete within this level playing field they've created. So, I mean, you have to take your socialism with your capitalism. I think together they made the internet, which is even better than what it could have been or what it will be with net neutrality gone. I think it allowed for this freedom of access, this freedom of opportunity. And I think it's worth being a little socialist to have that. You can disagree. Some people have a slippery slope argument. If you go even a little bit socialist, you're a communist and you're bad. Other anti-capitalist people might have the same thing about capitalism. If you go even a little bit capitalism, you've sold out, you're bad, you're gone. So there's definitely both sides to this. I'm going to check in with the chat. I'm going to drink a little water. So I talk a lot. It's wearing me down. Let's see. George says, only governments can make lasting monopolies. How did we lose the right to make our own TV stations? They made a law against it. They reserved the frequency. The frequencies used to be open for radio. The frequencies used to be open for television. Some of the frequencies were even reserved. This is a level playing field. When they restricted those frequencies, the FCC began managing them. This is similar to what they did with marijuana in the 1920s. They had these stamps that said you could produce marijuana, but then they never produced any of these stamps. In the same way, the FCC has low power licenses for radio and television stations. They just don't give them out. So yeah, it's the same thing as net neutrality. You had an open playing field, the radio frequency world. Anyone could radio broadcast. You had regulations and laws come in to protect the existing players. NBC, CBS radio, they spent a lot of money on their transmitters. They spent a lot of money on their repeaters. And you little pirate radio scumbags were screwing up their transmitters. Just like with the internet, you pirates stealing your movies and your music and putting up your dirty pictures or dirty words or whatever you're into, you're screwing up their internet and you're not paying them. That's what's really important here. You're not paying. When you were running that pirate radio station, you weren't paying any license. You're not giving any money to CBS. You might be interfering with their transmission, which interferes with their ability to make money. So they restricted your access to the radio. Radio went away. Now we don't even think about something like you should have a radio station or you should have a television station. The same way that right now I'm broadcasting on the internet. I'm using the advantage of my two-way connection to both receive data and to send data. As net neutrality continues to drift away, as these corporations take things over, things are going to be more and more one way. You just go to Netflix and watch a movie. You don't go to YouTube and make your own movie and talk to other people who make their own movies and talk about things. No, especially once they limit my bandwidth, once they cut down the upstream and they're like, well, you don't really need upload. You don't need upstream. Then that's gone. They take away these websites where I can share these videos. That's gone. All these things. I'm sad to say that it's going to be like radio and television. In my opinion, we're going to roll back. It's sad. It's really sad. Telegram, all these things, they start out as amazing communications technologies that democratize the world, and then they rolled back. So let's see. They're saying many things I mentioned were happening before net neutrality regulation. How is that possible? It's not. I mean, not the bandwidth thing isn't happening. I mean, the bandwidth thing is happening, and those companies are breaking the law. So I would say the companies are exposing what they want to do after net neutrality by showing us with their actions what they do now. And it's difficult to know what innovation is being stomped on because we can't prove that it would have innovated if it had been granted access to the level playing field. So yes, I think the corporations are doing these things now. They're illegal, but if the net neutrality rolls through like they have rolled it through, the things that they're doing now, these anti-competitive, discriminatory practices that destroy the level and open playing field of the internet will be legal. So they'll do them more. Let's see. U.S. has crony capitalism and a modern form of fascism. That's not wrong. They're saying the government created the monopolies. Well, I mean, it's interesting. The thing about, I mean, they didn't really create the internet ISP monopoly. That was, I mean, they allowed it to happen. They didn't crack down these companies. They didn't stop AT&T from taking over new ISPs, things like that. But I would say something like providing access to the internet is so easy that it should be kind of a monopoly, but it should be a regulated monopoly. What we're going in the other way, removing net neutrality actually makes them more unregulated. They're more free to discriminate. They're more free to act like a monopoly. Monopoly, like the power company or the gas company or the water company, not always a bad thing. Sometimes it can provide cheap, inexpensive access to services that everyone needs. That's why the government does allow some monopolies and does work with them. So let's see. Bitcoin maximalist saying a little socialism is okay, really. Well, I think if you're too extreme on anything, you're not going to learn anything. I don't think that there's any position for black or white issues. It's nice to say that. I like it in art. In art, you can say black or white all the time. In the movie V for Vendetta, the bad guys are evil and the good guys are good. And that's why it's a movie. And movies and TV shows make it simple for us to think about ideas like good and bad by showing us things that are clearly black or white. But if you allow that to drift into your normal thinking and you think that all socialism is bad or all capitalism is bad, that's just too simplistic. You're just thinking like a child. So you need to be more flexible. You need to be more nuanced. right? You need to think behind the thing that you're thinking about. So I would be careful when you get into that kind of thinking. And it doesn't matter what the subject is. All black or white thinking, not very useful. It's limiting. So let's see. Honest overview of Bitcoin. The volume matches look more like September 2017 price of 3,713, where Bitcoin could possibly go if it goes below 5K. Jan disagrees. He doesn't think so. It's more of a triple bottom. So we don't know. Crypto Sasquatch agrees. He says, or he or she says, free and open internet for the sake of humanity. And I agree. I think that the internet is very important. I think that it's a shared resource that makes us all better. And sad. They're saying if a large ISP does something stupid like block a desired service, a small ISP could emerge to serve that market. I disagree entirely. The way the current system's set up, we have about 2 or 3 ISPs. We have Comcast, we have AT&T. Many people don't even have the choice in their local market. So if you were to say, I'm not accepting this, I'm boycotting the internet until I get a net neutrality provider, it's very likely that you would die before receiving internet service. There are really 2 to 3 companies. Small ISPs really can't compete on the scale of a larger ISP because of an economy of scale, because of how much money the large company's running by having so many customers and X number of lines already in the ground. It really comes down to physical resources. The cable lines that were installed are what we're using. We're using the old cable system for the most part, running internet over the existing poles. It's control of these poles. It's putting in the poles. The companies would argue that they spend a lot of money putting in these poles and they should try to profit of them as much as they can. This would also be their argument for not allowing small ISPs. They put the poles in. So that's really what we're talking about, is access to poles. Thanks so much to Dave for giving us a super chat in the chat. He says he likes the content. Thanks so much. If you'd like to call in, you could call in live on Skype, World Crypto Network, all one word. Let's see. They say we have limited ISPs because of government involvement. That's the point. But I'm saying we took the limits off. Like the problem is, and again, I'll just talk a little more about this. Maybe we'll go on to another issue, more Bitcoin related. But the ISPs aren't just ISPs anymore. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, Thomas. It's Max Hillebrand again, calling live from Germany. How are you?
Hey, Max. I'm doing good. I think I got to finish up my point on net neutrality. I was going to say that the ISPs are also content providers. So AT&T owns content. So it now matters to the ISP whether you watch Netflix or whether you watch AT&T video. So they are no longer in any way neutral. You have to think now ISP plus media company is fighting all the other media companies using net neutrality as their tool. But what's on your mind today, Max? Anything about Bitcoin or net neutrality?
Well, I'm not an expert in net neutrality, but just my 2 cents on the topic. I agree 100% with everything that you've said so far. And an open market and open competition is always preferable. And although it is expensive and capital intensive to build an ISP, as long as the market is open and as long as it is easy for other people to enter the market and to build their own company and provide the service by themselves, then it is a free market and then it will be the most efficient way it can be. Yes, it might still be expensive, but that is because it is a really capital intensive service.
That's what's so interesting about net neutrality and ISPs is that we have to have this strange law to create the open market. And that people are rebelling against this law and they don't like it because of the things it does. But at the same time, if we look at what we benefit from it, we benefit greatly from the open market that net neutrality provides. And we're going to lose those benefits, it seems.
Good points, absolutely. But as I said, I'm not an expert in net neutrality, but I'm actually calling in to talk a bit about the incumbent banking system and financial system, and especially the Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering regulation, because you briefly talked about the lady that got convicted of laundering, quote unquote, her Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think about that? Or is it a similar situation? The banks are using these laws to protect their legacy businesses?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. So a bit to my history. Even before I got into Bitcoin, I was intrigued by the financial markets, and I had a gut feeling that they were pretty fucked up. So I wanted to investigate a bit more. And I actually decided to go into the belly of the beast and take a job at a pretty large German institution, and kind of see how the system works from within. And then after I signed that contract, I got into Bitcoin and especially Austrian economics that helped me on my path of really understanding how horrific this system is. But also having the insights and the real person's experience in there is quite interesting. And especially for know your customer. Um, this regulation is horrific in every shape or form, and it is disgusting to the utmost.
Well, at least in the US, from my knowledge, it was mainly instituted in the 1970s as a way to crack down on drug cartels. Is that what they use it for in Germany?
Well, that's of course the main argument that they give. Oh, this is for, we want to protect you all, and we want to save you from the evil drug kingpins and all the criminals and the terrorists. That's of course the way that they push this propaganda. Absolutely. But the only reason is 100% mass surveillance of the innocent public, to 100%. So as an example, we as employees at that bank have to take regular tests to check our knowledge on the current state of know your customer and anti-money laundering regulation. Roughly 2 to 3 times every quarter, we have to take one of those tests. And the questions in those tests represent the regulation as it is written, by the European Union. But of course, also how we at the bank apply it. And one of those questions is the following hypothetical scenario. So you have a small businessman, has a woodworking shop, and he makes roughly 30,000 euros per year. And he usually gets that money via bank transfer. So he doesn't really do that much in cash transactions. This is the base scenario. And now what happens? This one man comes into the bank branch and he brings $3,000 in cash, which is not much. It's only 3,000 euros in cash.
Mm-hmm.
But the question now is, what is the correct action to take? Number one, everything is perfectly fine. Take in the money, credit it to his account, and then let the man go. Number two, this is suspicious. Do not accept the money at all, and show the man out of the bank again. And the third answer is, this is really highly suspicious. And what you should do is escalate this process to the authorities, and do some thorough research over the entire history of that man's bank account and see if any other suspicion comes up. And if yes, you have any right to close this bank account, to freeze any transactions, and basically to
See,
torture
now
him
I know I'm not the first one to point this out, but what's shocking about this is how it turns the banks against their customers. I'm a customer of the bank. The guy in the story is a customer. He works at his little shop. He makes 3,000 euros. Maybe he found him on the street. Maybe he won him gambling. I don't know how he got the money, but the bank should just serve him as a customer. They should put the money in his account. They should keep the money safe. They shouldn't let any bank robbers in. That's their job. What's sad here is that the government's made the banks into policemen. And then now the bank is both a policeman and someone working for you. And I think it's sad they would pick on that guy with the 3,000 in the same way that I think it's sad they charge overdraft fees to people that don't have any money. Your checking account is crashing, and now we're going to charge you more fees on top of that. It seems once again the banks really serve people at the top. If you have a lot of money, maybe you don't get treated this way. But once again, the government still has them acting on the policeman, even if you're the greatest customer of the bank or the worst customer of the bank. It's a very surprising turn of the system.
Absolutely. And bank secrecy was not just that your neighbor cannot check your account and see how much money you make. That was not the main reason why bank secrecy is such important, and especially in Switzerland, why it is such a virtue of a Swiss bank to be completely secret, or at least it was. It used to be. But right now, the main reason for bank secrecy is that the government does not know how much money you make, that the government cannot prosecute you, that the government cannot censor you and take away all your money. That is the main reason of bank secrecy. And at the current state in the incumbent financial market, there is not even a thing such as bank secrecy. I, as an employee, can at any time see any transaction you have ever made, at the direction, like at the location that you've made that, on what you've spent that. If you go gambling, if you go to the strip club, I can close your account at any moment. I can reverse transactions. I can send all the money out, and I can do that, with the push of a button. The only thing that I don't do it is because, yes, there is the regulation in place that, at least on paper, tries to not do that. But of course, if it is possible, if someone has the power to do that, and by the way, pretty much all employees at the bank have the power to do that, then this power will be used in a fraudulent manner. And that's why Bitcoin is so important, because it is censorship resistant.
And that's why people were so upset a few years ago. I got mad at this centralized service called ChangeTip, and they were basically a way for you to send your Bitcoins around, but they would hold your Bitcoins for you, and then they would send them around. And basically, it was clear from the outside they just created a database, and you could go into that database and say, I have 10 Bitcoins in tips instead of 1, and suddenly you do. And I thought that was a big problem and went against the way that Bitcoin works. I thought you should use Bitcoin to send Bitcoin around, so that you have the security. And all these other centralized databases, things like Coinbase, once again, they can freeze your money whenever they want to. Whereas if you have actual Bitcoin in a real Bitcoin wallet, it can never be frozen.
Absolutely. Digital currencies are fucking hard. We had the first digital currencies in what, 1982? And it failed miserably. And so did every other digital currency project ever since then. And that's the norm. Digital currencies are fucking hard to make really good. And that's why Bitcoin is so beautiful, because it's the first time that it actually works. But that also means that if you do not use Bitcoin, you fall back to the old system that we clearly know that it doesn't work, like proof of stake or like Tangle or all that other bullshit. No, the proof of work, the distributed consensus and the decentralized consensus, Nakamoto consensus, that is the main innovation here.
Well, and I totally agree. I think that cryptocurrencies are hard to make. And when they first came out, we were so critical of them because we'd seen them fail before. Everyone who looked at Bitcoin and walked away and said it's never going to work, you're not wrong. It's not difficult to have that opinion. What's surprising to me now is that, new Jerky Coin comes out and everyone's like, Jerky Coin is the best coin ever. Jerky Coin is going to rule the whole world. And I'm like, did you see how hard it was for us to make Bitcoin, even to the level we're at now? And you're going to do that same thing overnight with Jerky Coin? And I don't know. They have such misguided beliefs. They believe so much in something that may be so wrong. I just don't know how that's going to work out for them.
Well, absolutely. And I think all we can do is education. And that's why the channel like the World Crypto Network is so important. And that's why I'm so grateful for your support in this ecosystem. And it's also nice to remember that in Bitcoin, we are this decentralized movement. We are this decentralized autonomous thing. And technically, if you are in this movement, then we are all co-workers. And it's amazing to have you as a coworker spreading the good works in Las Vegas and in California. And yeah, thanks for everything that you do, and keep up the great work.
Thanks so much, Max. Thanks for the call. Give us a call anytime. And I do think we are like coworkers, like Max said. I saw a great thing that Crypto Graffiti, the artist on Twitter, a friend of mine, put out, and he said, "I'm so happy for all my coworkers on crypto Twitter, and that I really didn't have this before, and we didn't have this 2 or 3 years ago when people just started getting into Bitcoin, but we really do have it now. You have people like JW Weatherman, who just wants to talk about Bitcoin, just wants to spread the word, and other people who believe in the technology and they believe in what it can do for the unbanked and what it can do for stopping these late fees and stopping these other fees and all the things that they're taking our money out of our bank accounts." And we're having a little comments in the chat. Jan says in the chat that he's an older person into crypto and that he became 64 in February. Congratulations, Jan. Happy birthday. And I asked him if he's got a Trezor or a Ledger. He says he has a Ledger and it works well. And that's what really impresses me, is not to be critical of older people or anything, but if you are an older gentleman or a gentle lady and you figured out how to use a Trezor or a Ledger and you got your coins off the exchange, you're the man. You're the woman. Like, it's fantastic. I'm very impressed with you. There's a guy comes to our Las Vegas meetup. He's a regular, John, and he's also an older gentleman, and he has his own Trezor, and he has his coins off the exchange. And that just really excites me, because not that I think it's so technically hard or anything like that. I think you have to have the strength to try it out. And even if you're going to read the instructions, which I never do, you have to have the strength to read those instructions, and you have to have the strength to take a risk of moving your strange internet money off of a strange web page and putting it onto a strange little USB device. But if you've done that, and you're an older person, or even if you're a younger person, or even if you're just a not very savvy computer user, and you figured out how to move your coin off exchange and put it onto a Trezor or a Ledger, good on you. Fantastic. Like, I think teach your friends. Maybe if you could show 2 or 3 of your retired friends or 2 or 3 of your high school friends how to do the same thing and how to put their money on a Trezor or a Ledger, I think that's really exciting. And yeah, we're talking about, it says in the chat, Peter is 61 and he uses a Trezor. Same Save Me or S4Me says his mom figured it out. That's fantastic. And again, I just think it's great if you can figure those things out and if you can get on board. And I'm not even saying it's difficult. I'm just saying you have to have the will to learn something new. A lot of people don't have that. They don't want to learn anything. They get upset when you teach them things that they don't know. So I was going to talk about one more thing that Max brought up. We were talking about money and how money's created. And I consider myself pretty well educated. I tried to read a lot of books. I was interested in history, science all the time, these kinds of things, Star Trek. But really, I didn't learn where money came from until college. I think it was maybe my sophomore year. I was taking a history class that was about the 1920s and 30s, about that decade, that time there. And they started getting into it, how the Federal Reserve works and how they take $100 of real money, you deposit it into this account. That bank then loans out that $100 not just once. I had these very limited ideas of banks having reserves and there actually being money in the vault that matches the money. But the banks will actually loan this dollar out 10 times. And then the other banks that they loaned it to will loan that dollar out 10 times. So there's this, I forget the right word, but kind of a domino effect, a cascade. There's a cascading effect of money where $100 contribution to the bank becomes thousands of dollars. And this is how the Federal Reserve actually seeds new money into the economy. So when they print it, then they print more, and then they print even more. And when you learn these things, it's like the Matrix. You want to stand up and walk out. You're like, I don't, this is insane. Like, you just print the money and people believe this. And you walk out into the rest of the world of non-history majors who aren't studying this thing in depth. And you're like, what are they doing? What are they doing? It's going to be a disaster someday, but they keep, it's musical chairs. They just keep printing more money and they keep moving the chairs. And so far, so good. And that's what's so funny now. You see people are actually upset about the debt, and they had to add extra digits to that debt clock that's in New York City, the big outdoor printed one, because it got so big. And they just keep blowing it up. It's interesting to see. And this is also when you learn things about growth and you learn about the capitalist industry and the capitalist society, and that it must grow. That we're borrowing this money from the Federal Reserve, say we're borrowing $1, and we have to pay them back $1.25, and we have to go find that 25 cents, but it doesn't exist. So we can never really pay them back what we borrowed them. Maybe we can get the dollar back that we borrowed and can give that to them, but we still owe them the interest on that quarter. So the system is forever in debt to this private bank that runs the American system. And even right now, I feel so conspiratorial telling you guys the history, but this is what's actually happening. I hate to be that one. And this is why, for all of his faults, and the man has many, he undoubtedly committed genocide against the Native Americans, undoubtedly. Andrew Jackson still, despite that horrible event, a series of events, etc., Andrew Jackson killed the banks. I still think he's a hero for that. I like it when he killed the banks. But you know, you got to go back and look at the history. Saying in the chat that he's leaving because conspiracy theories are BS. But remember, in the legal definition, a conspiracy is just something involving more than one person. And while some people believe that you can keep secrets and that you can have large organizations that don't crack, other people believe that all of your secrets will eventually come out and that we will know that you are acting in concert with other people to do questionable things. So, and once again, if you have a small religion, it's called a cult. If you have a big religion, it's called a religion. So it just takes time and size. And the winners write history. The losers are forgotten about or have their histories changed. So you can give us a call right now on Skype, World Crypto Network, all one word. I'm going to try to keep this open for about 9 more minutes till 8:30. And I talked about the dollar creation. I talked about the banks. It's like another call. Crypto Network, all one word. Try to keep this open for about 9 more minutes. Oh, got to turn your speaker down. And I talked about. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from? Oh, that's okay. Maybe he's getting headphones and he'll call us back. It is non-intuitive at first that you need headphones because you can hear me through your speakers. But the problem is the speakers are delayed about 2 minutes and I'm live. So, but you can go ahead and give us a call back if you've got headphones, a microphone, a quiet room, maybe a glass of water. That's all you need to call. It doesn't have to be the world's greatest question. You could just call to chat or to hang out. It's just good to keep the lines open. Oh, I might have let that come through. Let's see. Talking in the chat. Let's get the chat up on the big board. Where'd it go? Thought for sure I had the chat on the big board, but let's see. Here we go. Fact, I finally tattooed a Ripple logo and a Bcash logo to each side of my bunghole. Thank God. I don't know. They say, Scott says there's a conspiracy in plain sight. They just call you names for pointing it out. They don't refute it. And that is true. A conspiracy theorist is not a counter argument. It's a title or a name or even a slur if you want to use it in a negative way. Kidder says, the greatest conspiracy of all is your own existence. Ooh, getting into some Joe Rogan woo-woo territory here to call up Gabriel D. Vine. Let's see. IMF head Christian Lagarde is a convicted criminal with a $400 million plus euro fraud. Criminals are in charge of the system. I don't know. They might be. Remember, they would be the best criminals. Our system, at the least, judges or the most well-connected criminals. I don't know. But I don't have any more information on Christian Lagarde. You have to look that one up. Let's see. Web Dev Nuvi says, Thomas, the system is set up to keep most of us in a hamster wheel for our whole lives. Bitcoin will change this. Property tax is a perfect example. Money is demanded from you for simply existing. Property tax is a tough one. I mean, I lived in California for a long time, and we basically locked down our property tax. I forget the proposition, maybe 215 or 15, something like that. And it's good and bad. One thing is you don't have to pay a lot of property tax, but the other thing, the schools and the roads are wrecked. So. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Oh, hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hello. This is Eastside Tony from the Silicon Valley Crypto Group.
All right, Tony, what's going on? What are your thoughts about Bitcoin today?
I'm just driving and I got my daughter in the car. She's 3.5 years old and she hears the word Bitcoin and she gets excited. Now I'm just excited about the new generation that's coming up and everybody that's teaching their kids about Bitcoin.
That's awesome. 3.5. That's really young. Have you does she use a tablet yet? Is she a computer user?
Yes, yes, she does. Of course.
Oh, I know the kids these days, man.
YouTube is the way of the future, and I mean, everybody, all these kids are all watching YouTube. They don't watch TV anymore.
I've heard that there's some strange thing. I told my little cousins that I have a little YouTube show, and I'm not bragging about it or anything, but
Right.
they were impressed, man. They thought I was some kind of Hollywood celebrity. They're like, "How do you do that?" All that kind of thing. I think it's starting to become their new dream, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I have a bunch of friends, and we make and build and fly drones. So we all have our own little channels, and the same thing happened to me, right? They're like, "You have a YouTube channel?"
Absolutely, yeah, and drones are perfect for it too. The footage is so amazing, and especially if you fly somewhere cool. Yeah, I could see how that would take off easy, man.
Oh yeah, so you know what? I actually messaged you on Twitter about Morgan Raccoons.
Sure.
Rockwell. I'm definitely interested in his story. Last time I saw him was on the Tone Vase show. Maybe you can get him for an interview after his next trial or whatever.
Yeah, I'd like to interview Morgan and talk to him more. I do have I want to just disclaim I know Morgan personally. We've hung out. So I don't necessarily I don't want to negatively contribute to his case. I don't want to put him in a position where he'd say the wrong thing. Morgan's very free with his words and very open about what he'll tell you. And I think sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. So I've generally just kind of been hands off there because I know him.
Maybe you should have like a written question already, something that something written maybe, because I think I think his case is very scary. For like I got very scared when I heard about it. I was like, man, it scared me.
Well,
Take your Bitcoin, right? That's not cool.
I
and
think
definitely
well, we can.
think about securing your Bitcoin. Even if they take your hardware, you might have to have some backup somewhere else, right? So I don't know. It's a good story to have. But I'm going to let you go, man. I just want to say hello, everybody in the World Crypto Network. I love your show. I love what you guys are doing. And I'm throwing it down to the next generation, man, already.
That's great, man. Well, thanks so much for the call and good job with your daughter there. Teach the children.
Yes, sir. You have a good one.
Thank you. Great call. You can give us a call right now on Skype at World Crypto Network. But let's go ahead and talk about some more about what Tony was talking about here. I think it's great. It's super exciting for kids to learn Bitcoin. Give them a chance, give them a wallet, let them send it around. I think it'd be pretty easy for a kid to make the leap to that being money. Just as easy as it is to convince them that this piece of paper, this piece of metal is worth money. So I think that's a great time to start on it. And also, again, it shows it's a really simple point, but I want to make it often because I think simple points are sometimes the most important. But everything we do is on the phone now. Everything we do is on the iPad or the phone. Why isn't our money on the phone yet? And I know the government moves slowly and the government can't get rid of the penny. And there's a lot of things they can't do. But why is our money? Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, Thomas. How are you?
Doing good. So what are your thoughts about Bitcoin today?
Well, I just wanted to first say I've been watching you since, I would say, August or so of last year before I started to buy any Bitcoin. I do really appreciate your show. You're really informative and you're positive about Bitcoin. But, recently I have been having my doubts, and a lot of it has to do with the use case for Bitcoin. Like, I'm thinking to myself, it might be useful to maybe, travel to a different country and not have to, use an exchange to get into their currency. If, say, if I was in Japan or if I was in Hong Kong, I could just get into a taxi and use Bitcoin. But apparently, you could just use your credit card, and if I want to do an instant payment to someone, I could just use Google Wallet. So can you maybe tell me what the difference between those two use cases and Bitcoin would be?
Sure. For me, I would start at the edges of the Bitcoin use case. And for a company, this probably isn't the most exciting thing. If you had a company like Venmo, you're like, we can pay everybody in the world back. It's an amazing application. It's a simple pitch, right? With Bitcoin, I would start out by saying Bitcoin allows you to buy the things you want to buy. And that's a core thing there where it's like if you want to buy drugs or if you want to buy hackers or if you want to buy a VPN, if you want to buy pirated data, if you just want to buy, clean access to the internet through a VPN, Bitcoin allows you to buy that. So I know that the crackdown isn't that tight right now, but we've had black markets in the past. We've had government controls during wartime. You couldn't buy metal. You couldn't buy bacon. But if you had Bitcoin, you could use that to buy the things you want to buy. So it's not the best corporate selling point. It's not the kind of thing that's going to make us go 0 to 60 in 6 months. But if you give it 5 years, if you give it 10 years, and there's still something you want to buy, you could use Bitcoin. So that would be a use case. They're also saying in the chat that the other use case is holding your value. And that because Bitcoin is a deflationary currency, it's in a completely different category to something like the dollar. The dollar is constantly being printed, even being printed digitally now. It's not even such a problem with the physical bills. It's a problem with the digital dollars that they're printing and the banks are using. So if you do the comparison between the dollar and the Bitcoin, one is deflationary and one is inflationary. The degree to which that's important depends on whether you're in the US or whether you're in blocking on the name, but the Colombia, South America, Argentina, you know what I'm talking about. The one that flipped over, Venezuela, I think is the one. They're having double-digit inflation. So if you're having double-digit inflation, if you want to buy something that the government or the other people say you can't buy, that's why you'd use Bitcoin. So what do you think? It's not as commercial as what you might be looking for.
Yeah, so now that opens like another can of worms, right? Because in order for that to be a viable reason to hold Bitcoin, then Bitcoin would actually have to be a currency that can be used to buy anything or to pay for anything, like say my rent or just going down the store to buy a gallon of milk or groceries or something like that. And if I cannot do that, then I have to trade it for fiat. And if it's in, say, a treasure or a trezor, however you cannot do that until you get to an exchange. So so these are things that I'm kind of like wondering is I'm not seeing any headway towards that type of occurrence. Like I'm just not seeing it. So it's almost like it feels like that we're just waiting for the prices to go up so that we could sell it.
It does feel a little like that, but I think at another level, we're just waiting for more people to get involved. Bitcoin is so small right now that you probably can't spend it at the local store because the local storekeeper doesn't want Bitcoin. But if Bitcoin does become valuable enough, if enough people get involved in Bitcoin, I think the local store owner is going to want it. So then they're going to want to accept it. So I think that acceptance like that will just happen in a huge wave overnight. But it's going to take a lot of behind the scenes growth that doesn't really look like growth. I know a lot of people thought that this would happen through the merchants and that there'd be some kind of chicken and the egg process where the merchant starts accepting Bitcoin. So you go home and learn about it, and then you start paying in Bitcoin. And I can tell you from my experience, that's never happened. Nobody really wants to spend this. The value goes up and down. They want to hold it. They want to use it as a hedge against the government, against the dollar, and for the future of a speculative vehicle. So I think we're still very much in that time period, and we just have to wait. It's going to take a lot of patience. Like we say, it has no marketing industry. It has no leader. It's difficult to have a project like this because it does seem leaderless and directionless and unclear about where it's going. But as far as the using it at your local grocery store. While it would be a nice goal, and I do see a future where everyone does take Bitcoin, I don't think we're there yet. I think you have to think now, give unto Caesar's that which is Caesar's. So if they want USD to pay your taxes, you have to sell your Bitcoin for USD to pay your taxes. And if they want USD to buy milk, you have to sell your Bitcoin to buy milk. But if you want some other kind of milk that the government won't let you buy, like raw milk, or if you want some kind of, I don't know, some other thing that they won't let you buy, Bitcoin's time to shine, right?
So yeah, and it seems like that Bitcoin is, from what you're telling me, that's an interesting slant, waiting for a type of government control of everything, and Bitcoin is our escape hatch, like an anarchy type of thing. And that sounds cool, but I mean, I like, to be woken up one day and like, oh, by the way, we're gonna like forfeit all of your dollars just because we can. It seems a little bit unrealistic. I mean, don't you think that? Or
I think we'll have a mixed system. I don't know that we'll be entirely able to get rid of one or the other system. I think it'll be a mixture. I think it's more complicated, but I think everything's always more complicated. Nothing's as simple as we want it to be.
All right. Well, so listen, Thomas, I just have one last question for you. So, you and, other people from the World Crypto Network have really touted the importance of having a hardware wallet, which I get. However, you can't currently buy anything from a hardware wallet. Like, so let's just say that, I go to Subway and I know I can use Bitcoin there because they have the QVC code there that you could just purchase from. However, I can't do that from a Trezor. However, I could do it from, like, say, my blockchain.info iOS wallet, right?
Yep.
However, my question is like, say that I have my passphrase. I was a good little boy. I wrote it down and I know my passphrase.
Yep.
But blockchain just decided to go out of business for some reason, like just shut down their servers.
Sure.
How do I get my Bitcoin back?
Okay, well, you're I don't know the exact on this, but I believe that your passphrase is just another version of your key. So if you have those words, you could put those words into most any wallet and it will recover your wallet. Because in my mind, the passphrase is just a longer wordy version of your key. Similarly, if you had your private key, if you just had that written down, you could import that into most any wallet with just the private key.
Right.
That's why when you make the when you do the Trezor of the original piece of paper,
that they will not let you have is the private key. They will give you the passphrase, and I did some research on that, and then there was like this website you actually had to convert your passphrase into, and you could use that to convert it into a private key, but there was like a bunch of different bit codes that you had to walk through and everything. So I'm just still not sure about that.
Well, I definitely, I would not enter your private words into the internet. So if you have a tool on some website that wants you to put your private words in, they'll make it into a key for you. I would not trust that. I would be very careful with your private words and your private key. So I believe you can import it. I've done it with paper wallets where I import the private key into blockchain.info. And then it stops being a paper wallet and it kind of starts being part of my blockchain.info wallet. So I think that's a possibility. And you can get out of Trezor and Ledger with that. What I would suggest is get a blank Trezor or Ledger and try it. I also know people have told me that you can make a second copy of your Trezor. So let's say that you go ahead and set it up once, you got the private words, then you buy a second Trezor and you recover that Trezor to those words. Now you have two Trezors working on the same account. So it's pretty neat what you can do with the private keys.
Yeah, so I didn't realize that that actual passphrase was I don't want to say ubiquitous, but it could be used in any Bitcoin wallet. Like say, I can't even think of another iOS wallet.
Sure, green address.
Say Samurai or something like that.
Samurai,
So you could take that passphrase from blockchain and put it into a Samurai wallet, and you're saying it might work?
That's my belief. I haven't tried it lately or anything, but that's my understanding of why I'm writing down those words. And I know people have worried, like, what if Trezor went out of business? Because I know part of my Trezor thing goes through their servers. I don't know why. I wish it was all offline or whatever, but part of it does. And in that same way, if they went down and those servers went away, I think that all the Trezor users would take their keys over to Green Address or blockchain.info or get a ledger or whatever, enter those words, and it will recreate your entire wallet. It's not just the one account that's linked to your key. There's some complicated words to this, but your recovery seed, your Trezor recovery seed is actually like a master seed that creates all the other wallets. Scientifically, I don't know exactly how it's done, but I imagine the same random number that's used to start your initial wallet is also used to start all your other wallets. So I think you would be able to recover most everything if you just had the key. I think Keep Key would be the same. I haven't used a Keep Key. They're asking in the chat. I imagine Keep Key has the same system as Trezor or Ledger. If somebody has a Keep Key and can tell us, that'd be cool too. But going back to your other question about Subway and about spending money, I do suggest that people have a little bit of money in a portable wallet on their phone, like blockchain.info or Airbits, Samurai, Green Address, any of these. And then you have your savings account or your retirement fund or whatever you want to call it in your Trezor or your Ledger. And this way you can lock them up in a safe deposit box. You could put the key in the box. You could keep the Trezor out for usage. You could lock the Trezor up in a second safe deposit box. You could bury it under your house. I think those are good ideas for cold storage, but you also need like the way you have your wallet and your bank account. You don't carry around your entire bank account in your wallet, but you carry around a little bit of money for spending here or there. And the same with Bitcoin. If you just carry around, $20 or $100 just to have in case you have a situation where they don't take other money or you really want to buy something, and then you'll have the money.
Okay. Well, that is really nice chatting with you, Thomas. It's good to hear your show. I look forward to it. And I guess, keep going. I really do appreciate your work.
Well, thanks so much for giving us a call. And I would suggest go ahead and try that out on the Trezor. Maybe get a second Trezor and just play with it and try to break it and try to lose your money and try to, don't actually lose your money, but, test it with $1 or something. But I think it would be great. I think it'd be a great way to know more about Bitcoin.
Yeah. So, the thing is that the Trezor, I'm really interested in more having a wallet on my phone, because in my opinion, I could be wrong about this, but having something on my phone is just as safe as having a Trezor. And if they're gonna do something about like confiscation or something, and if I'm going to the airport and they're looking for, does this guy have Bitcoin for some reason, I could just delete the app. Then there's no Bitcoin at all. Whereas if I have a Trezor, then they're going to know that it's Bitcoin, right? So they're going to take it. And then when I get across, then I could just reinstall the app and recover my wallet. So I thought that would be a better way of handling things.
Well, part of the problem with a wallet like Airbits or Green Address is that your private keys are actually in there. So if something goes wrong with that program, it could leak your private keys. What's nice about the Trezor is that your private keys never exit the device. When a Trezor or a Ledger or Keep Key, any of these things, when they sign the transaction, they do it on the device. They only output the result of the signatures. They don't actually output your key. Your key stays on the device. So in that way, it's probably better to have your keys, especially if a lot of money, in a Trezor or a Ledger. And if you were going across a border, I hate to say this, I don't want to contribute to people going across borders illegally or anything, but there are a variety of ways of hiding your Bitcoin. If you didn't want to bring the physical treasure with you, you could write down each word of your key on a page of a book or in your notebook or somewhere randomly, and maybe even memorize the last 3 words, and they could never get it. They'd have to use a wrench to get you to give up those last 3 words. And if the other words were hidden in a code or hidden in some kind of system, I mean, they could be anywhere. So it's not, I don't want to be mean to border security, but it's pretty trivial to walk through with a bunch of Bitcoin, which is, again, one of the, from a government perspective, it's one of the problems with this cryptocurrency whole idea. You used to be able to control people taking wealth across your borders. If their car was too heavy, it was full of gold. So, you know, it's no longer true. So.
Yeah. So definitely, you know, so I guess, you know, another question pops into my mind, like, you know, Bitcoin doesn't have any physicality to it at all. I think that, you know, there are just so many people in America, at least, that still like to pay with like a 20.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do you think about that?
Well, sadly, as much as I'm a fan of the older generation and they did some great stuff and they fought some great wars and that kind of thing, I think those people are going away. The younger people that I know, they pay entirely with credit card or bank account. They don't care that all their purchases are being tracked and that you can draw a little line of where they went in the world today and what their favorite places are. No one seems to care about that. And the people who go to ATMs and get money and spend it over the weekend, that's kind of gone. I mean, I feel really old here, but I was a kid when credit cards were not really used and ATM cards only worked at banks. And every weekend, you know, my parents and I would go by the ATM to get a little bit of money, and then we'd go around spending it, buying food and toys and whatever. And when it was gone, you had to go back to the ATM. There was no just easy spending. So I think the credit cards made it easy to spend, and Bitcoin is just going to make it easy to spend as well. So I think habits are changing and people will get used to using their phones for money. And you never have to go to an ATM again. It's a sweet deal.
Sounds good, Thomas. Thanks again, sir. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for the call. Give us a call anytime. And it's great to have those questions. If you have a question, it might seem like a dumb question or whatever. It's not. Someone else out there has that same question, and they have 5 questions like it, and they don't want to ask it. So if you want to get up here and ask a question, it doesn't matter what it is. I'm glad to talk about the basics. Some of the basics I might not even know. I'm okay being wrong with that. If you tell me I'm wrong, this is how we're learning. We're learning together, and I think that's really great. We're checking the price of Bitcoin is $6,765. You can give us a call on Skype, World Crypto Network, all one word. We'll try to keep this open a little bit longer if we can get another call going. Jeremy in the chat says, can I donate to WCN via a check? We don't take any checks. No checks. They bounce. I always thought bouncing a check was a funny idea, like that piece of paper was made out of rubber. It doesn't really work. But we were talking before about the kids and the kids learning how to use Bitcoin on their tablets. And I think that's a great idea. I think it'd be super fun if you just had 4 kids with their tablets and you taught them, you gave them all a wallet and you put $5 in. And instead of playing Monopoly, have them send around that Bitcoin. Just go ahead and send it around and let them trick each other. Say, hey, I'll give you this for that. And one of them ends up with all the Bitcoins, and that's the winner. And make them play little games. Make them figure out how this works. Try to explain to them public and private key cryptography. I think a lot of that is lost in Bitcoin, that really all it is a private key that allows you to move and send your Bitcoin, and a public key that allows you to check the status of your Bitcoin to see if you still have them. I learned this through email. When I encrypted my email with Thunderbird or with PGP back in the day, I had to figure all this out, and I had to learn what the difference was. And you learn right away, don't let your private key out there. Never put it in there. So Yeah, it's good thinking. And I think email is another good way to teach people about it, how your private key can encrypt your email and it can decrypt your email. And that's the same thing it can do for your Bitcoin. It's the control key. So checking out some things. We'll try to keep this open. Couple more minutes. We might head towards the end of this morning show. I did have my breakfast before this, so I'm ready to go. Let's see. But I think we are heading towards the end of the show. Let's see. Saying Sensei Mad Bitcoins, Senpai Matt Bitcoins. I don't know which one's right. Sensei is a Japanese word for teacher. The best way to teach noobs is to wheel spin your Lambo on the way past. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Thomas, hi. How you doing? It's Jose calling from Mexico again.
All right. How's it going in Mexico? Sunny and nice?
Yeah, it's beautiful, of course. Thomas, I hate to call and bust your balls a little bit, but I just woke up and I hear you talking to this guy about a private key management and long-term storage. And I was a little, I want to say thanks for retweeting my stuff yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But share it with the people now. You know, you're talking about you talked about getting wrench attacked.
I mentioned it a little bit. It was a possibility.
Do you have any critiques on my protocol?
Well, I think it's a good idea. I like the poem aspect and that you get to memorize your private key as a poem. I'm still worried about losing it myself, and I have a pretty good memory. Yeah, I even kind of mentioned it a little bit. I said if you wrote down all your keys in a book, but then you memorized the last 3 keys, then you could never give it up. But I suppose you'd go further than that. Would you memorize 2 of the keys and send one of them to your family? Something like that?
Oh yeah, Thomas. I think you're forgetting my protocol, and you're just talking about my article from yesterday about memorizing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I memorized half my seats. I memorized 12. The other 12 I have sent across the world to my friends, to 4 of my friends who are holding my keys. We have an access protocol so that when I want my keys back, I have to send them a message every single day. One day it's a picture, the next day it's a video, the next day it's a picture, video. And then after those 7 days, that's the material they use to look. I told them, I wrote all the stuff about this. Sorry. You know, you can get kidnapped, you can get wrench attacked. You don't want to be a single point of failure. You don't want to have control of all your Bitcoin right now. You need to have human verification that you're acting freely. You need to spread your keys out over far distances. But burying it in a hole, having it in a safety deposit box in a bank, I just gave a slightly ferocious tweet storm to Casahold, Jameson Laugh and Casahold yesterday. Did you happen to see that? I think I tagged you in that too.
I saw a little bit of it.
Yeah, this is Jameson Lapp. You know, this is a really smart, really cool guy. And have you seen the projects he's working on? Do you know how Casa, their whole project is private key management. And they had the article, and I had to, with something titled like the best key management in the world, something ridiculous like that. And I really think it's bad. I'm shocked. I mean, I didn't say it like that, but now I am because I'm speaking. It's bad. It's easily wrench attackable. You have to trust 2 private parties. My private key management is network based on your friends. I've given it to my friends. I signaled half the key to them. 12 words. I signaled that to them. So that's all encrypted. I actually emailed it too because I'm dealing with some people who they're like it doesn't matter. 12 words. Somebody gets hacked. Somebody gets stolen. I'll tell you the 12 words right now. Well, I don't know. And that's the point. After I send it, and they confirmed they had it and they stored it safely, I wiped my Trezor device. And then I erased the emails and deleted the messages. So I didn't send it on Facebook because all that data is stored and is easily accessible by me. The point is, you don't want to be in control. You don't want to be a single point of failure. You don't want to get wrench attacked. Thomas, walking out around the city in Las Vegas telling people about Bitcoin. Are you crazy? You got to be monkey wrench proof, bro.
Fortunately, I don't have any money, so hopefully people know that and they'll be
Man,
cool with that.
Thomas, I don't know if I believe it, bro.
Well, let's go with the Casa Holdo. What is their solution? You described your solution. You split the key up into parts. You put some of the trust with your friends. You have a protocol that they'll give you the key back. What does Casa Holdo? What do they do under the best scenarios?
They could probably describe it better, and it'd be a great interview. They have a great graphic on it in one of their articles. There's a great picture of it, which explains it really clearly. So they provide a business, private service. They also handhold you through it. They only do high net worth individuals, or especially probably businesses and institutions. They're not for Joe Hodler, you and me. They don't do that. So that's another reason why I was a little bummed Jameson decided to do that. I think they've said their intention in the long term is to make this available to everybody. And okay, I get it, but it seems like, okay, so how does it work? So they hold an emergency recovery thing, a copy that's emergency recovery. Then you have a copy on your phone that just lives on your phone. Then you have 3 hardware devices, one at your home, one at your work, and one in a secure location, like probably a safety deposit box or a bank or something. So then they use a multi-sig, I think, and I asked them about this too, and I'm excited to see what their response is. They have a multi-sig. They have 3. So you have 3 hardware devices. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to set up 3 hardware devices. So I think they have some open source multi-sig software. Oh, I'm sorry. Is this a software multi-sig? Oh, I'm sorry. Is this software? Oh, is there multi-sig software open source? Because if it's not, that's another thing you got to trust. So you got to trust Jameson's company. You got to trust your bank. I mean, if then you lose your phone, sorry. Oh, because it's a 3 out of 5 multi-sig contract.
Well, especially if you don't make these hardware devices yourself. Part of the Trezor and Ledger setup is that you're actually making the device when you make that private key with the words. If it comes to you pre-set up, which is something that rich people like and they hate setting things up, you're trusting whoever set up that hardware device.
Oh yeah, I'm not so much worried about the hardware devices. I think it's the software that does the multi-sig.
Yeah,
I don't think that's so. I have 2 Trezors. I don't have any options for multi-sig setup. So I think they have some software. Is it open source? That's the question. I'm just saying, and not that you have to trust Trezor, or you kind of do, but anyways, we all do. But I'm saying you could lose. It's 3 of 5. You could lose those easy, and you can see my thread about it and you should talk to them. I'm glad they're doing something, but I think my way is way better. And Thomas, I'm just trying to keep my bros safe. I'm not going to harass. This is the last time I'll bust your balls about it. I just want you to be safe, bro.
That's okay, man. You can bring it up as much as you want, and I want to be more secure. But I think for me and for a lot of people, there's those 2 lines that intersect, and one of them is being really secure, and one of them is convenience, right? And contacting all my friends and getting the whole part of my key and having this whole system seems pretty inconvenient, but it seems pretty secure. Whereas having another system where you just hide things, or you have passwords, or you bury them in the yard or whatever, less complicated, probably pretty secure. It's about how much security do you gain, and how much security do you need, as well as what your situation is. I think for a traveler like yourself, having this split up system is a really good idea. But I do fear if they were going to cut your fingers off or something, man, you might give them all this information anyway. I mean, the wrench attack is still a very strong attack.
You can't keep secrets. Whenever I bring this up, wrench attack, people just bring up plausible deniability and passphrases.
Yeah, I know.
You can't keep secrets.
No,
if somebody jumps you and they grab your something and they put a knife in your, dude, you're going to just, if you know your seeds or you know where it is, you're going to walk in, they're going to have your seeds in 10 minutes. Sorry. But mine's, Tom, you can make mine really convenient. You don't have to do the elaborate 1 week back and forth like I do. I'm super secure. You can just tell your friend to say, hey, if I send you an email, send it back. Okay. Or you can be a little more safe and say, oh, let's video chat. You go. With your mom, dad, brother, sister, 2 friends over there and 2 friends there. Hey, that's pretty secure. And it's just half and half. It's just 12 words. It's a fun poem. It's not. You only do this long-term stories, right? Every couple months, you might want to practice the protocol and check and reinstall and get some new seeds going every couple months.
You could also split it up into parts, only put like half a Bitcoin in each one or a 0.1 in each one. You could buy multiple Trezors and ledgers. That way you could give the criminals one of them and still keep the other ones. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of, but again, physical security is difficult. We've been working on it for thousands of years. And I don't know, you might need some guards. I don't know. It's not a good solution. I watched this. I don't know if I want to bring it up because I was totally creeped out by it. But it's on Netflix and you can watch it and make your own decisions about it. But I watched a documentary last night about John McAfee. And I don't want to mention any of the specifics because I don't want any trouble with Mr. McAfee. But boy, there's a fascinating documentary about that on Netflix. And at one point, he had hired 25 armed guards to go with him everywhere that he went because he's a little paranoid and because he's a rich man. And oh, just so fascinating. And again, it shows for even someone as wealthy as Mr. McAfee, who has seemingly endless power and ability to do what he wants to do, this fear got to him, right? And yeah, maybe he did some questionable things that drew this down on him. But at its core, $100 million man, whatever Mr. McAfee is worth, still afraid. So maybe it is better to be more anonymous. Maybe you shouldn't wear a Bitcoin hat in public. I've kind of stopped. I don't really try to advertise it anymore. Not that I even have that many or anything, but I do like talking about it. So, but yeah, no amount of guards can keep you safe. It's a tough thing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you just got to try your best, you know. And the funny thing is, I feel safer having dealt with the situation. You know, I also prepared my will. I simply integrated a simple inheritance plan and getting all this stuff organized and being prepared and knowing what I'm going to do. If I get jumped and somebody jumps me and says, give me your Bitcoin, what am I going to do? And you know what I'm going to do? Be totally honest. And you know what? Then I can like relax. You know, I can wear my Bitcoin shirts. Because you know what? If I get jumped, that's just my bad karma or whatever. You know, honestly, I'll be careful I can. But this is like such a simple thing. I really can, encourage people to check out my counter wrench attack protocol. It's on Medium. Maybe I can send you another link down. And
Sure.
People, guys, at least be secure from a wrench attack. There's even better things, and it can be you can get inheritance all hooked up. That's not hard. It's not hard to do this stuff. Read my articles. I'll show you how to do it easy.
Well, I do think karma is a part of it. And also one of the basic lessons that they taught us in Aikido is if you have a bad feeling about an alleyway, don't go down it. Listen to your feelings. Listen to your, if you think you're in a place and maybe it's getting too late and you should go home and get out of there. A lot of things can be avoided just by having an awareness of your situation.
Yeah, and being tapped in to yourself and your intuition, which reminds me of the article, and thanks again for retweeting it, I posted yesterday about using your Trezor. Once you wipe it, you can use it. You can generate new seeds every day. It's easy and fun. And also, as I wrote yesterday in my article about how to memorize your seeds, you put it in this poem structure, and it's easy, and you find the meaning, and then it's easy to remember. It's simple. I've memorized so many, and I forget what I was saying now.
Well, I do think it's fun to mess around with your Trezor and your ledger, maybe to buy a second one just to try to break it. When I was younger and I had more free time, I used to install Microsoft Windows over and over again. I would break it, I would fix it, I would break it. And this just made me more prepared to fix computers in the future because I wasn't afraid of breaking them because I had broken them. So if you're afraid of breaking your Trezor or your ledger or you don't understand how it works, maybe buying a second one and just putting it through its paces like he's saying here. You could restore it, you could format it, you could delete it, you could write down the key. How do you know it really works until you test it out? So
yeah, seriously, Tom. People who just do it once and put it in a safe, and then they think, oh, look at it, you guys, we got to be practicing and using this stuff. My Trezor 1 is wiped because that's where I generated the 24 seed words. So that's now wiped. And I generated like a new one every day, every other day. And I also started a Twitter called Satoshi Speaks where I just post those. And, you can read those and your intuition can illuminate. And then my Trezor 2, I use as like a semi-hot wallet money for the next few months and stuff.
it sounds like a plan, man. I think you got it set.
Well, I hope you're and everybody's safe, Thomas, and keep working on all the Bitcoin projects. And let's help the world as best we can.
Sounds like a plan. Let's keep it going. Give us a call anytime, and keep working on the anti-wrench stuff. I think it's a real tough problem, and we got to keep working on it.
Thanks so much, Thomas. Sorry for busting your balls today, but sometimes tough. You got to give the tough love.
Oh yeah, man, you got to do it. You got to do it. You have to protect your issues, and this is a good issue to protect. So.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Tom. Have a great day, bro.
Thanks so much. Give us a call anytime. And remember, you can call us now live on World Crypto Network, all one word, on Skype. I'm accepting a few more people here. Sometimes I have to accept you. I can't stop saying that. I want people to call. I don't know what people are talking about. Yeah, I'm going to keep saying the same things. It's a call-in show. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Thomas, it's Scott from Utah.
Hey, Scott, how's it going in Utah? What's your thoughts about Bitcoin today?
Good. Hey, I was just calling in response to the previous caller. I'm sure you're aware of this feature on Trezor, the passphrase. But I think from a security standpoint, you can have your main wallet on Trezor, it just has your PIN number.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you do is you just hold a small amount of Bitcoin in there that when you get wrench attacked, you give them the Trezor, or you open the Trezor and transfer the money to them. But there is a second kind of a hidden wallet feature, the passphrase, that the wrench attacker is going to be satisfied that you gave them the Bitcoin, or that you gave them the Trezor and gave them your PIN number. And the truth is that in that passphrase wallet, the hidden wallet, there's a passphrase that you make up that's the 25th keyword.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where you hold the majority of your funds. So it's a good way, I think, of dealing with this issue. Even going across borders with your Trezor, you'd be able to satisfy a security guard or a wrench attacker of some sort with that first wallet, and preserve the majority of your Bitcoin. So that was just my quick rebuttal or additional info in terms of security that I think is a generally good idea.
Definitely a good idea, and it shows that Trezor and the other companies are thinking about this and considering the options. Obviously, it's very difficult in the face of a gun or an attacker to have this calmness of mind to give them the fake password and to put them through that and to keep your face steady and whatever else you have to do. But it seems like a good idea. I think most people will be able to do it.
Yeah, and just to clarify, what you do is you leave your Trezor in the non-passphrase mode.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you plug it in, you just put in your PIN number and that will show your fake wallet. You don't have to reveal any password to them. You just reveal the PIN number and they assume that, and then they'll see Bitcoin in that wallet. And it's Trezor goes into either a passphrase mode or a non-passphrase mode. And so essentially what you do is you by default leave it in the non-passphrase mode so that every time you plug it in, it automatically opens up to this smaller, non-passphrase wallet. You still have to put in a PIN number. So it seems like you're accessing in a secure way your wallet that way to the attacker. So you don't have to, there's no reason why they would assume you would have a second hidden wallet is my point.
Unless they're watching this show. Clever criminals.
That's my only concern about this method.
They do have to be very careful. The screens all have to look the same. It couldn't be like, this is your test wallet or something. That would be bad.
Well, and you could also have, with this passphrase mode, you can have multiple passphrases. So you could have a second wallet that's a passphrase wallet that's maybe your medium-sized wallet. When someone says they know you have a passphrase, then you give them that wallet, and then you have an even third larger wallet. You're true. So anyways, just some thoughts, and I thought Trezor did a good job at designing that feature, and people should know about it.
Well, thanks so much for letting us know. It does sound like a great feature, and I think it is one more option.
All righty. Thanks for all you do, Thomas. I think the most critical issue in Bitcoin is just education, because to get adoption, people have to understand the economics and the security and the ideas of freedom that Bitcoin provides, and kind of understanding how corrupt the banking system is by design. And so what you guys do and what you do personally is much appreciated. So keep it up.
Well, thanks so much. And I totally agree. I think education is the most important part. And it's difficult to educate people on Bitcoin, like you say, because it crosses so many disciplines. I don't know. It felt perfect for me. I'm a history major. I believe in the ideas of liberty. I'm kind of a cypherpunk libertarian type, or not very libertarian, but I'm a cypherpunk type character. And so I got to it real easy. But for normal people, they might see this as a virus or something that's going to wreck their industry. It's going to destroy all the old jobs. And I'm not denying that. I'm not saying that it doesn't. But it's going to happen anyway. So you may as well learn about it and get some knowledge. And at least you'll be in a better position when whatever happens, happens.
Right. And I've been sharing the Safedine book with my friends. I buy it for their birthdays. And that way they think I'm being generous with them, but I'm actually just trying to educate them. So that's one thing to do. The Bitcoin Standard is awesome in terms of understanding the economic underpinnings of Bitcoin, and how I think what you're saying there is true. It's not that we're trying to take over the world. Bitcoin is designed with some inevitability. It's kind of like a black hole with us or without it, I think it's going to take over the world because it's the best form of money, and good money always wins, essentially. And the question is who owns it all? And like gold, now owned by all the central banks, essentially, Bitcoin has a chance of being owned by someone else. And those people will probably have the power in the new system. So hopefully it's the good guys, and we all need to be good about how we take care of our money.
I think so. And I think black hole is a really good way to describe it. It's not a negative or a positive force. It just does what it does, and it sucks everything in. And it's not going to stop, and it doesn't care how big the thing it is that it sucks in. The black hole just keeps going. So yeah, I could see that. That's why, as Mad Bitcoins, I've predicted the Bitcoin price will be infinity, that Bitcoin will suck in all of the world's wealth, so much so that we start denominating wealth in Bitcoin, not in dollars.
I agree. And we've got to all be hodlers of last resort. You know, the thing that gives it again, it's inevitable. So what if the way to hodl is to just understand its inevitability, and to have a strong hand and be patient, and just know that, eventually these new waves of adoption are going to come, and we have to be extremely patient about it. And it's pretty tough, but it's nice to have the community that kind of shares these ideas, and we can kind of hold strong together. So thanks again, Thomas, for all you do. I will let you go and let other people call in.
Thanks so much. Give us a call anytime, Scott.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And you can call us now on World Crypto Network, all one word, on Skype. And we had a question in the chat, so I want to go ahead and answer that. Thanks so much for the $10 donation, Dork Mo. It says I put it on the screen here. Here we go. No, where'd it go? I thought I could put it on the screen. That's too much. Here we are. In the absence of mainstream news hype, will Bitcoin's price naturally equalize to the cost of electricity for mining? I'm not sure how to answer this, but breaking it down in parts, I would say that there is the halvening coming up. And a lot of people have talked about how in order to have a good halvening, the price basically has to double so that the miners will continue making the same amount of money for mining Bitcoin that they made previously. Last halvening, I think the price was around 5,000. If I really want to think back, I'm not entirely sure. But right now, it's probably around doubled to 10,000. So the miners are still doing all right, although we have had the decline to 7. So in order for Bitcoin to go through the next halvening, it would have to double from 7 up to 14. I've heard 14 is the current cost of a Bitcoin, so that might just barely make it for them. I think that it's tough to really analyze this market because the mining purchasing decisions are being made 3 months ago. So 3 months ago, if you decided to buy a bunch of Bitcoin miners, you're kind of locked in. You can't really make your any other decisions. So there's a lot of money coming into mining no matter what the Bitcoin price is, because a lot of people think that's where the money's going to be, where it's going to be made. Will that continue? I don't know. But that is certainly driving up the industry as we watch the hash power continue to rise even as the price goes down. So I think that the question is, when will the miners stop mining? If Bitcoin becomes too inexpensive, will the miners stop mining? Or is there not a period where Bitcoin becomes too inexpensive? Is there someone out there that's always going to mine, that's always going to believe this thing goes back up? And it's a lot of questions, and we don't really know. So I think that's a good question. Thanks so much, Dorkmo, for asking us. And I'm going to check the chat now, see what you guys thought. If you have other ideas on what the cost of Bitcoin will do, if it will match the cost of electricity for mining. People enjoyed the last caller. He's a good caller, and he's right. This affects all of us, man. It's about our basic freedoms. And it was a good idea to do the Trezor double passphrase, or even the triple passphrase. That sounded pretty good. You could say, okay, here's my wallet, and you put, $100 or $1,000 in there, and they say, oh, that's great. But here's my, we want your other wallet, and you give your other wallet maybe $2,000 or $3,000, and then they don't have to take your big wallet. That's a pretty cool idea. Criminals of the future. It's going to be harder and harder to get people to give you your money in Bitcoin if they have systems like this. But let's see. They say holders of last resorts will be the ones. You need to have patience. Bull Run doesn't believe Bitcoin will ever go below $1,000 again. They say miners will keep mining and the price will go back up. I pretty much agree with that. I think that the miners have a certain amount of sunk costs. They've decided they're going to do this. They've rented the warehouse. They've bought the machines. They're kind of locked in. They can't really make the kind of choices that we can make when we freak out and panic sell. You can't freak out and panic sell your miners. You're kind of locked in at that point. So I do think they'll keep mining. I also think that there's a lot of rich people that have bet on Bitcoin mining. And if you look at the way that Bitmain has done it in China with a $4 billion profit, they're doing fine. And a Bitmain, certainly a company like that, or any other major mining company that's been saving their money, especially saving their money in Bitcoin, because of the recent ups. Even though we're down, we're still up. I think they'll just keep mining it. They think that the money's in there. The chat agrees. They say the miners ain't stressing. Bob McCall has a question about what happens after the last coin is mined. Now, we are talking generationally here, because I believe the last coin is estimated to be mined around 2140. Currently, it's 2018, so that's not looking too good for me. Maybe the caller's kid will make it, or her children. But when that happens, generations from now, there's a couple of possible scenarios. One of them is that the fee market continues to adjust upward and that we pay more for Bitcoin prices so that the fee market covers up for what the miners would have made from the block reward. That seems possible, and that's your capitalism idea there. The other possibility is that a company will be so reliant on Bitcoin, a company like, let's say, Amazon, if they started taking Bitcoin for purchases online, it would be worth it to Amazon to keep running the Bitcoin network so that people keep using it and they could keep paying Amazon. This is not a very capitalistic idea. They'd have to have trade-offs. There'd have to be some kind of a cost benefit where obviously some of those transactions don't go to Amazon. So Amazon would be carrying those transactions anyway. They might not want to do that. They might want their own version of Bitcoin. They might just run that instead. So I don't know exactly what would happen after the last Bitcoin is mined. There also might be a third way. There's a government possibility. Government could run the Bitcoin blockchain as a public service for the people. Governments of the world could do that. I don't know how much it would cost to run the Bitcoin blockchain at this point. It might be quite a lot. So the more money it is, the harder it's going to be to get someone to keep running it. But we would need someone to run it to keep the blocks coming in so we could keep having new transactions. Even if there isn't a mining reward, the rest of that system would have to keep going if it keeps going. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey man, my name's Ricardo and I'm calling from Paris.
All right, Paris. How's it going? What's your thoughts on Bitcoin today?
You know what? Honestly, man, with the currency, the way the market's going right now, I've just been watching it just go through a little bit of a consolidation in a red market this last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, for those people who are new to the party, even people who are at the party right now, this whole crypto market it's just starting. Like we're at the very forefront. There's so many seats to be taken. So I think patience is a virtue, but that's one thing that crypto needs right now is just a lot of patience and a lot of support. So I think honestly right now, the best thing people can be doing that have crypto is finding out how to use it, whether it's purse.io, whether it's applications that show you the vendors in the area that accept it, or educating other people, because the market's so low. I mean, it's hard to pull people into the market when it's at, 15,000, 16,000, almost, going to 20,000. And then it's like, do you really want to buy in at that time? Because now look at the market, it's down to $6,000. So I think this is a really good time for people to wake up and to bring other people into the realm. This party is just starting.
Well, I totally agree. I think it's a great time for education. And I don't know, looking back on it now, things I'd wish I'd done, 5 years ago. I wish I'd sat my family down and had a serious meeting where I told them to invest in Bitcoin. And I found this difficult to do because I told my family to invest in the Facebook IPO. And as you all know, it went up and it went down. And I told them it was fine. And I held on to mine and it went up eventually and it was all good. But still, once you've given someone financial advice and not really had it work out, you realize there's not a lot of gain in giving other people financial advice. If it works out, it's great. They're not going to give you a cut. And if it doesn't work out, they're going to blame you and they're going to be upset at you forever. And they might even want you to cover their losses if you can afford it. So it's not that great, but still, as Bitcoin has gone up from $300 even to 7,000 or whatever, 6,000 we're at today, it would have been a nice thing to do. I also kind of wish that I'd went around my neighborhood in Sacramento. I kind of live in a, kind of a cheaper Hispanic district, not to say anything critical, but I wish I'd told them about Bitcoin. I wish I'd made a flyer in my gringo Spanish that told them a little about it, and at least give them a chance to get in, and maybe it'll change their life, and maybe Bitcoin won't go up enough to change lives anymore or anything. I don't know about that, but I want to give more people the chance to get in, people that I know.
That's the thing about it, though. I mean, that's the thing that we have to realize, the people that are already in it. It's like you were there at the point where you're outside the dome and you're thinking, should I go in or should I not? And you have your long list of do's and you have your long list of don'ts. And in the end, you made the decision whether to be here or not be here. And you paid the price. You could have made money. You didn't. But it's not about the money. It's about the idea. It's about the movement. It's not just about, let's get rich and turn it into fiat. It's trying to get away from that monetization system. And that's kind of the idea, is that, do you want to give people, it's just like America. I mean, like when people from the UK came over and they were like, you know what, we don't want to be monetized by the British Parliament. We don't want to be monetized by a royalty. So freedom. And look at America now. And that's what Bitcoin is. I think it's just, how much more support does it need before it gets its reins and it starts going back up and it starts peaking back in the teens and the 20s. And honestly, I'm going to be honest with the whole crowd. I love Bitcoin. I love what it stands for, but there's a lot of other currencies and in the crypto market and coins that are not even being utilized or really looked at. And I think how heavy Bitcoin is, and it's got a lot of rollouts with its new updates and the Lightning system and the futures trade system, but I don't think people are looking at Litecoin, Bcash. I don't want to say EOS because I'm not a big fan, but the things that are just right there. And I think Bitcoin, it stands for something, but we need to support what it stands for rather than being worried about where we can buy it or when's it going to go back up. We need to get more people into the party and to the crowd. That's like, your neighbors, people that you rub shoulders with, not corporate conglomerates, not bankers, not owners of huge corporations. That's my opinion.
I think that's good. And if you could teach your neighbors how to dollar cost average and how to invest $10 a week or $100 a week, something you don't have to worry about, that's a good way to get into it. I definitely agree. Education, like we were talking earlier with the little kids, getting it on their tablets, giving them $5, letting them send it around, and for adults too. Have a little party at your next time you're out to dinner with your friends. Say, everybody that installs this app, I'll give you $5 or I'll give you $1, and just let them try it out right there at the dinner, and they don't have to put a lot of money in or link their bank accounts or know anything, and just send it around. And I think that's what we can do. I usually give people $1 if I meet them, and they'll install a wallet. And I don't have a lot of dollars, but I find that the more I give away, the better I feel with just giving it to people to try it out.
Dollar average buy-ins. I mean, that is the key in this market because it's so volatile. I mean, you can make $10 turn into 100 in less than a day, or I think that's an absolutely great way to get into cryptocurrencies. And I think people should look at cryptocurrencies as not a sense of just black or white, but it's more of like a slow transition. I look at cryptocurrencies as a savings account for fiat, because if you look at fiat, it just keeps dropping every single year. It keeps dropping. But if you put a little bit into, let's say, Bitcoin, and it's down here at 6,000, last time it was down at this number, I put in more, and I always put in more when it drops down to 6,000, because I know it. Well, I believe and I support Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies that they're going to go back up. It's the Fibonacci retracement pattern. So that's my opinion. The way it's going, with how much support it's going, it doesn't seem like the big money, the big spenders can really take it down to its knees. They've been trying. I know that the Phoenix, which account or which trade was bought by not Wells Fargo, but there was that trade that was bought by one of the banks just recently in the last 4 months, and you're starting to see banks buy cryptocurrency exchanges, not even directly. So of course they're not going to tell us the truth. They don't want us to know it's a good system that it can take them out from their knees. I mean, they're monetizing the entire world for how long as we've known it. So now it's our chance to slowly transition. It's not going to be, like you said, or like you said earlier, it's not going to be overnight or 6 months. It takes 5 to 10 years for the system. This is a massive system. So I think people need to support this idea, not necessarily just Bitcoin itself, but educate themselves and others. And that's what I'm doing. I've started my own channel and started educating people. And if you just open up the conversation, even just having somebody I didn't believe in it for so long, and now that I do, I can see how people don't. We were all there, like I said, that decision is being made. So make the list of do's and don'ts, but just show people the door and let them make the decision to put in $10, $5, and that's a great buy. That's a great idea. What you said earlier about buying in small amounts.
Well, and I think it's a good idea to start your own channel and to tell your friends, because everyone has a unique voice. And you weren't into Bitcoin for a long time, and that's your experience, and you can share that with other people, and other people get in right away, or they have different reasons why they're excited about it, and that you're the best person to speak to your friends about Bitcoin. Word of mouth marketing is the best kind of marketing. If I tell you that some diner has good food, you might remember it and you might eat there, and you might forget who told you the diner had good food.
Or on the opposite, say it's bad, and then boom, 3 turns into 9, which turns into 18, and
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important that we all do our part and go out there and teach our friends and teach our neighbors. And if you think of a clever new way to teach people about this, it's funny though. I think back to email and I was pretty excited about email. I had it really early on. And I'd say to people, why don't you have an email address? And I'd treat them like space aliens, like, what's wrong with you? And then why don't you have an ICQ? And why don't you have an AOL Instant Messenger? And why don't you have all these things? And it's different because it's money this time, and you can make or lose money, so that makes it different. I never made or lost any money by installing ICQ early, but this time we can, so it's kind of fun.
It's just a new party, and it's when you walk in the door and you see everybody else has been there for a while, I can feel a bit intimidating, not knowing anything about graphing, not knowing anything. A lot of people that are getting into cryptocurrencies that are new to whole trading. They're not doing it to make money. They're just doing it because they're fearing that the monetized system is crashing, because word of mouth. Somebody told them and explained to them. It's history. And somebody said something about conspiracy theories earlier. It drove me nuts.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theories are what is history. If people didn't conspire to things together secretly, then we wouldn't be humans. We would just be flies or something. That's what makes us human, is that we can make decisions to lie and cheat or tell the truth and infect or affect others, in a positive or negative way. So people who don't believe in conspiracy theories in this day is like not believing that, I don't know, the earth is, I don't know, forget it. But
the earth is round. That's a conspiracy theory too.
Conspiracy theories. I mean, if at this point, if you don't believe that, it's like saying the internet doesn't exist. These things exist, and it's existed when our parents' time and their parents' time, and in countries and nations before our time was even there. So I think people just need to wake up to the conspiracy theories. The reason why people don't believe in them is because the propaganda and all the people who are doing the conspiracies are making it sound silly, just like Bitcoin. So we'll see. But at this point, I kind of have to laugh underneath and like just sigh and shake my head and think, God, people, they don't want to deal with the cognitive dissonance. And that happens to me. I'm a truther, and I've been talking about this stuff about food and everything you could imagine since like I was in high school. And I didn't even eat the food in high school because I just didn't want to. But toothpaste, water, food, it's all in the air. Everything that's bad, it's there. And if people are talking about it, it's not because they're just trying to make a FUD. It's because there might actually be some reality to behind the conspiracy that is our history, Well,
and I do think it's all about cognitive dissonance. For me, I always try to see both sides of everything. So if I look at history and I say, oh, the founding fathers are these fantastic revolutionaries and they created America. But then if I look at it from the British side, I say they were terrorists and they stole this country from the British, and they stole a bunch of British citizens.
Look at from the slaveries, the Africans, like everybody's going to have their own point of view, but absolutely cognitive dissonance is.
Sure. Slavery is the same thing from the Africans' perspective. They were fighting wars. The losers of these wars, or the weaker people, were sold into slavery amongst the Africans. And then they just started doing that outside of the country. For them, it was okay. They were selling losers of wars. But, look at it from another perspective. Human beings are sold into slavery, and that's not acceptable. And then the British were helping them do it, or the other slave traders. It's a very complex issue, and I agree. You have to look at it from both sides to understand that. That's what
we need. We need people to stop just looking at it from one perspective. Even when you have your decision made, it's always good to relax on the decision. It's such a different mindset. Being in Europe is so different to me because everybody's so relaxed, and it kind of drives me nuts because I'm always in a hurry to get somewhere. As an American, I'm always like, okay, ready to go,
Yeah.
In Europe, they're just so like, they take 3-hour lunches, 2-hour dinners, and it's just like, no time for all that. Like 15, 30 minutes max. It's just a different mindset. And I honestly think about cognitive dissonance it's just our mindset has been programmed to be a certain way and to not be patient and to have everything that we see that's the only way, when you're driving on the street, somebody cuts you off, they're the biggest asshole. Maybe something happened, or maybe they got cut off, or maybe, there's just so many things that we're so unaware of that's what's ruining the world is our, the cognitive dissonance or what's it called? This happens to me a lot in France. When I have a miscommunication, it's a miscommunication. It's nothing big, but we just all have different mindsets and different opinions on everything. So yeah, I think Bitcoin is where America is. It needs to be liberated and it needs to be empowered. And if it wasn't for America, I don't think we would even be the same world. I think we would all be under this huge hierarchy and controlled and plugged into, I don't even know, batteries or something.
Oh, we still might be. But I totally agree with you with the Europe idea. When I was in Amsterdam, one of the things I found the most difficult was waiting for the check. My meal was over and I was sitting there, and they were content to have me sit there for another hour. I was ready to go. As you say, American, got tourists, things to do, busy.
Absolutely. You should see him say goodbyes. when we say goodbyes, it's like 5-10 minute conversation. And I'm just like, oh my god. No, I completely understand. But anyways, I wanted to just say thanks for everything you guys are putting out there on World Crypto Network. We need you guys. We need support from everybody listening, and you need to keep an open mind because lies are right there in front of you, whether it's in movies, whether it's in the news, whether it's in the media. So good luck with everything for everybody out there. And yeah, don't forget to look at other cryptocurrencies rather than just Bitcoin. Bitcoin's amazing. Don't get me wrong, what it stands for, but I believe in the few other coins that are following it have a lot of potential that Bitcoin overshadows based off of its royalty of being the first cryptocurrency.
Well, we'll have to disagree on that one, but it is good to look at other things and to have an open mind. But thanks so much for the call, and enjoy Paris. Go for a walk today. It's
just moved here, so thank you.
Oh, it's fantastic. I was only there maybe a week or something, but it was just great. I had a great time in Paris.
Well, Thomas, thanks. You have a great day.
Thanks so much. Give us a call anytime. And the caller was right there talking about history and looking at things from a different perspective. And just as he was talking, I zoomed the chart out here as far as it will go. And it's very hard for you guys to see, but if you look back here, this was the $1,200 spike in Bitcoin. This was one of the biggest things that's ever happened to me. I got some Bitcoin at $300, and pretty soon it was $1,200. So it went up 4 times. And then it went down, and then it was down for years. Here it is, 300, 400, 183. Pain, nothing but pain. And then somehow it goes up to around 900, pops to this 24, and then wow, 19K. So I don't know what the chart looks like in the future, but if I look at this old chart, this is 1,200. If I look right about here, this is probably the $300 range that really got me into Bitcoin in 2013 when Cyprus went off. And I said, oh, I really missed the boat, because I thought I missed the boat when it went from $1 to $30. I was like, oh, that's a 30 times game. I missed it. I had no idea that the boat kept going up. The same thing about Ethereum. I had no idea that boat kept going up either. But it's hard to judge the tops of these things. But you can't even see the $300 spike anymore. That was a huge deal for Bitcoin to be $300. Here it was at 1,200. And here it is now at 19,000, and then now back down to 6.5. So it really does seem like a dream, and that's only been 5 years. 5 years that I've been in Bitcoin. Wow, the chat scrolled by. Let's see. Everyone says they think it's a good idea to spread the word. Education's a good idea. I agree with that. Let's see. They say trade Satoshi doesn't allow me to log on because they're afraid for panic sell. That could be a protection. That could be helping you. Sometimes it's good to panic sell. Sometimes it's not. It says Bitcoin has its best days behind it because there are many ways to buy altcoins for fiat. That is true that Bitcoin as an entry level cryptocurrency was an important position for a long time. I'm not sure if we still have that, but I think a lot of people still buy Bitcoin first. Moonshine Fuel says that's when we buy, when there's major doubt and fear in the market. Jeremy agrees. Buy when there's blood in the streets. So many people blew all their money in the last bubble. If only that were true. It was so funny when it was up a lot. I found it even harder to sell. I was like, it's going to go up more. It's going to go up more. And then one day it stopped. So, We Smoke Bitcoin says the earth is flat. It's a dodecahedron. And they're conspiring. Bob recommends The Broke Cycle by Neil Stephenson. It's funny. I really like his older, shorter books like Snow Crash and The Diamond Age. I read Zodiac too. And I really liked his new one, Seven Eves. I was totally blown away by Seven Eves. I read it in like 3 days. But I couldn't really get through Cryptonomicon. And I think that's part of The Broke Cycle, or it might be a different one. But he's a great writer. He goes long sometimes. And he doesn't end well. Snow Crash had kind of a thrown together ending. Diamond Age, a lot of these things that you're rolling along so well in the story, and then it kind of ends in the middle of the page, and you're like, oh, I guess that's it. But I am looking forward to Amazon's supposed to have a mini series or maybe even a television series about Snow Crash, and that'll be fantastic. It's a great book if you haven't read Snow Crash. Jan says he hopes the central banking system is in the last phase. Let's phase it out. I feel it is. I feel it's the central banking system is akin to the music managers and the people that used to run music, and that they just don't run it anymore. The artists work directly for the people. Of course, there are new middlemen they've created with Spotify and Apple Music. Get on the boat or forever hold your peace. Hit that like button. And looks like we're joined by Josh from Voltoro. How's it going, Josh?
How are you guys?
So where are you today, Josh? Are you in Germany?
Yeah, I'm in Berlin.
Very nice.
Berlin.
So what are your thoughts today on Bitcoin? We've been talking for a couple hours here.
Man, I'm just still laughing my ass off about Dennis Rodman bringing, I just think it's so classic. It's so classic that a cryptocurrency, and there he is with Potcoin, and some shitcoin.
And I thought Potcoin was done. I know they had the money to sponsor him last time, but I'm impressed they have the sponsor money to get him this time. You think he'd stop talking about it, but no, he's right there on CNN crying and talking about North Korea and Potcoin, and what a crazy world.
It's a crazy, crazy world. If anyone's seen Idiocracy, it's very much like that. It's like we got these like total, just hilarious. I don't know what else to say. I feel like I'm, living in super interesting times, and this is definitely one of those days.
Yeah, I definitely watched that movie again recently, and that was horrible. The part in the beginning where Cletus is having all those children, and the smart people aren't having any children at all. And I thought, yeah, those are my friends. that marks up right. The smartest one amongst them doesn't have any, and the dumbest ones has tons. So yeah, I think we might go that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I loved the picture of you as Freddy Krueger. I mean, of Mad Bitcoins, I should say. That
was pretty cool. Philippe, yeah, I found that one. I hadn't seen it before, and it was in his stack on the webpage, and I was like, this is great.
Rodman on Wall Street, for those that haven't seen it.
Yep, but Rodman's out in North Korea now, sponsored by Potcoin. He's met with Kim Jong-un multiple times now because of Potcoin. So in a way, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are part of this kind of exciting North Korea summit thing that we have going on these days.
Yeah. Well, and also another movie reference, if anyone's seen the Ali movie, where in the end he gets everyone together, all the world leaders, and spikes them all with weed, and then world peace breaks out. Everyone's peace. It's it really resembles that. I think. Go Potcoin. Awesome.
Oh boy, that would be a great scene if they did that in real life. I saw the Ali G movie even before it was released in America. That's how big an Ali G fan I am. But yeah, it's so good. Isn't it so good? Yeah. Yeah.
Right, Gov. Yeah. So, but lots of craziness. I mean, this market is really, some going crazy. And if anybody still believes that there is such a thing as diversifying into other alts, apart from Potcoin, we've saw a 14% rise in that one. But generally, every single one is tanking, and that is because there is no such thing as diversifying into alts. Really. There's a little bit when you might get a 20% gain or a 20% loss instead of a 5% one or whatever. But generally, if Bitcoin goes down, so do the rest of the coins. And if Bitcoin goes up, so do the rest a little bit later. There's always some lag here and there. But generally, if you're a holder, these alts aren't something to diversify into to protect your wealth. It's still you're going to have to go into something either on hard assets or.
Now, what about the idea recently? I've seen articles that claim, I don't believe them, but they claim that Ethereum has separated or decoupled from Bitcoin because it's going up recently, and that Litecoin is also decoupled from Bitcoin because it went down recently. Do you believe any of that?
No, I mean, not really. You can, there is just general trends. If you zoom out a bit, you can really lay them over pretty precisely. On a day-to-day, maybe on a daily chart, you might see a little bit of a difference here and there, but in general, they definitely move together. I think more and more as we maybe get some more pairing to USD, I think that might decouple stuff. But generally, we're still in a very, very young market. Bitcoin is still the leader of this herd. Bitcoin is the tide, and everything else are these boats that are floating on that tide.
And people in the chat are agreeing. They're saying if you're a day trader, you can make money on Bitcoin in these markets because they're so crazy. But for most of us, we just hold on to what we have and hope that it goes good in the future.
Yeah, yeah. And now with Lightning Network, I mean, we implemented Lightning Network like about a month ago. We're the first exchange to do it, and we're really seeing now the amazingness of it. Discovering what the Lightning Network can actually do. Everything was so theoretical, but now we're really seeing the wonderful opportunities that are ahead for Bitcoin. I mean, you get coins like IOTA and stuff, which I really like because they're aiming for more feeless and more small, but Bitcoin can do that. Bitcoin can do that now almost free again. And this was the original, originally when we got into Bitcoin back in the day, that was always the promise, right? Really, really cheap transactions. We always gave the finger to companies like Western Union, back in the day. But now we couldn't do that on chain. But now with Lightning Network, we really can, and it's even cheaper than it was back then. So, and faster, way faster.
So how can people use the Lightning Network at Vaultoro.com? What would happen if I sent you some Lightning transaction?
Yeah, so right now you charge a Lightning, you charge a wallet somewhere, you open some channels with random nodes around the network, and then when you go to Vaultoro, we're just a normal exchange, except we deal in allocated physical bullion instead of instead of fiat. And you could, instead of waiting 6 confirmations, you just go and send, and you can send like 100 Satoshis right now. Right now we've got it capped because we're still in beta, but we wanted to just let people test it out. And so you can send 100 Satoshis and it's there instantly. And there's nothing more beautiful, Thomas, than being able to go to an exchange and go bloop, and there it is. It means there are so many cool things that we can start doing with that. And, like taking orders straight out of an order book, not having to trust exchanges' hot wallets anymore, being able to go, there's an order in the order book, I want it from a market maker. And market makers will still need to trust exchange hot wallets, but market takers can actually sit there and go, wow, I want to grab that order, and bloom, flutch, there it is, and it takes it straight from their hot wallet, their phone or whatever they're using. So as a Lightning node, so it's really,
that is fantastic. I've often found it to be a problem when you want to sell on an exchange and you send your money and you have to wait 10 minutes, and depending on the exchange, you might have to wait 30 minutes or 60 minutes for them to get enough confirmations. And then you have to set a timer on your watch, and you have to come back, and you have to remember that you wanted to trade. And then if you wanted to trade, especially if it's going down, it's probably gone down more while you're waiting for your transaction to send. But you don't want to keep your money on an exchange. You want to keep it at a safe place. I mean, so it would be great to have a faster option to send even a small amount, like 10, 15 bucks or something, across the Lightning Network straight to an exchange.
Absolutely. And in the future, working so closely with, especially our CTOs, unfortunately not here, but some of the cool concepts that are coming out by, like, people are saying, oh, no, transactions have to be very small with the Lightning Network. Yeah, well, that's true because it's a very small network right now. But once it broadens out, plus there's also technologies where you can send maybe 10,000 bucks, and it'll split it up into 1,000 transactions and send it all through different routes and then collect it back on the end node. So really cool stuff coming, and it's exciting. And you know what? The price is down, right? The price is only exciting when it's up and everyone's on it. But this is the time when we start building. This is the time where all this cool stuff is being built, when the times are down and no one's talking about it. And right now, some of the technology that's coming out of Bitcoin is really hot. And I think by the time the next bubble hype cycle comes, we'll be having, we'll basically be better than Visa and MasterCard in terms of a network.
I think so. Getting close. And they had some interesting conversations going on in the chat. There's a guy who says he bought a Keep Key at a swap meet, and it had a little bit of Bitcoin on it. But obviously, we want to make sure if you buy any kind of Keep Key, Ledger, Trezor, anything that's open, you want to reformat that device immediately. You have no idea if the person who sold that device kept the keys and is just hoping that you put some money on there so they can take that money. This
Yeah.
would be if you get one on eBay, it doesn't have a tamper protected seal. I don't want to do that. No. So you gotta be very careful with your hardware wallets. Maybe the guy will respond in chat that he reformatted and he's fine. But
absolutely. And when hardware wallets first came out, the Trezor first came out, it was like, people were saying, oh, but what if Chinese manufacture fake ones? And we're all thinking, oh, whatever, it's not going to happen for a long time. But we're at the time now where that could happen. The industry is so big. So only I don't buy stuff from eBay when it comes to hardware wallets. Spend that extra $10 and get it from the manufacturer's website. Get it from KeepKey. Get it from Ledger Nano S. Get it from Trezor. Because you really don't want to mess with that. Even if you format it, you want to know that it's come from the manufacturer, because what if it is a fake one?
It's also a good idea if your investment goes up in value to buy 2 or 3 Trezors. You maybe don't think this because it is $100 or it's $200. It's a lot of money still. But if your investment is worth triple or 6 figures or 7 figures or whatever, having 2 or 3 of them, putting some of the money here, some of the money there, maybe getting a different safe deposit box. We've been talking a lot about wrench attacks today. And if you have your keys split up and you get wrench attacked, at least you only give up one pile of your keys. You have multiple ones hidden somewhere else. So get a second Trezor, get a second ledger, try them out. Not to mock you, but you're a rich man now. You have a large investment in Bitcoin, and it shouldn't all be in one key. That's not safe. So.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And, the other thing to think about now that, once you start collecting a bit more and using it as a retirement fund, is really start thinking about estate management. It's something not many people want to talk about. I talked to Pamela Morgan yesterday on the Tatiana show about it, and it was also a really, really interesting conversation. She's got a new book out, and I would definitely advise people to go and read it. It's on Amazon, and it's an ebook and a physical. But it really goes through. And Pamela Morgan, she's really great. She's worked at Third Key Solutions. It's all about multi-sig. Very, very clever person, and has written a step-by-step guide on how to basically secure your Bitcoin without giving private keys to trusted third parties. But still, there was this gentleman recently who died with $500 million worth of Bitcoin lost. Their family could not. This is multi-generational wealth gone. The family cannot get hold of $500 million with a B, with a big fat B, Bitcoin B, and that's gone. Like what's that all about? And it is scary thinking about death, but look, don't think of it as death. Think of it like if something happens, because we don't know. Every day you wake up is another chance. Is to say, hey, I'm giving some. Imagine the good I can do if something does happen. It's really important.
And it really is generational wealth to think about. I don't know the gentleman. I think it was Mellon. What's his name that passed away with the $500 million. That could have helped his kids and his kids' kids and his family. And that's what's so hard about Bitcoin. When I made the decision years ago not to buy Bitcoin and instead to work for Bitcoin, I didn't really like rich people at the time. I didn't think it would be good to be one of them. But I hadn't thought about the fact that I could be a good rich person, that I could be a patron, and that I could support the arts, and that I could support my family, and I could buy them medical care, things like this. That's what the money's really for. Yeah. And we were talking about it earlier about the Americans and how they don't know how to spend their time or their money. And I didn't mention this, but a lot of the traders who wanted to get rich quick and who have now done it to much degree on Ethereum or one of these altcoins, they don't know what to do with themselves. They have no idea how to actually live their life other than chasing that goal. And it's a bit like one of those dogs that chases the rabbits around the track. If the dog ever catches the rabbit, they can't get him to chase it anymore. He knows it's not a real rabbit. He knows the reward is false. And in a lot of ways, these people who have millions and millions of dollars now don't know what to do with it. And they don't know how to branch out and do charity projects. And they don't know how to set up foundations. And you think about Carnegie, who built all those libraries. And you think about Rockefeller, who just handed the money on to his children. And there's different ways to be rich. And I'm not sure that anyone's really thought about this. And a lot of the crypto rich The only one I really know that's very active is Roger Ver, and he's been active in the whole Bcash and the fork and the split, and it's kind of a negative thing, and it makes me sad. If I had $1 billion, I would try to do positive things.
Yeah, I mean, he's also given to Free Ross a lot and all these things. So there are positive things that he's done. But, you know, another person that's done is the Pineapple Fund, did some really great stuff with Bitcoin. Basically said, look, I have more than enough lifetimes worth of funds that I think he said he doesn't have children. I'm not sure. But he then basically gave, I think it was, I don't know how much it was. It was incredible.
It was 25 $1 million awards is what I had heard. So
yeah.
$25 million. So
yeah, and there was some really cool stuff that's very, very hard to fund. So there was, I think, a psychedelics research fund. There was all sorts of really interesting funds and that I think are worthwhile. You know, and it takes someone like that, someone from an anarcho-capitalist sort of background, to sort of go, yeah, I'm going to fund that. You know,
and it's quite something to compare what Pine or Pineapple did. Compared to what this Melon guy did. The Melon guy had $500 million to himself as one person. Maybe it was all on the same Trezor. Maybe he didn't back up the keys. Obviously, these kind of things. But Pine has done so much good with his 25 million, and that's exciting when people do that. When we have those options and those people in crypto.
Really, really cool, isn't it? Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. But I'm interested to see how long this bear market goes for. You know, I know we were talking about price isn't that interesting, but it's I think we're going to be another couple of years. Funnily enough.
Oh, that's rough. No one wants to hear that here.
I know it's horrible to hear that, but you know, use this moment to just keep stacking, because I think if we take the last bear cycle, it really, after the Mt. Gox collapse, we did take 2 years. And this one was even bigger. And if you look at every pop, every boom and bust, the booms were bigger and the reconsolidations were bigger, were longer. So I'm not sure. Maybe not. Maybe there's so much more hype about getting involved and so many more on-ramps. Maybe it won't be.
They're talking about in the chat, they're talking about Roger Ver, and they say that one of them loves Roger Ver. And I think we all used to love Roger Ver, and we want to love Roger. We want him to be a hero of the cryptocurrency industry. And it's sad to see him spending his money on this divisive fork. I think there's a lot of other ways he could spend his money for good. And maybe he'll think of those ideas, or maybe he won't, or maybe someone else will. But it is important. And like Josh mentioned with Pamela, I wanted to go back to that because Pamela's great. I've met her a couple of times. She's fantastic. And what she also said is that at a very basic level, if you just write down on a piece of paper what you want done with your money, what kind of exchange accounts you have, if you have a Trezor or a Ledger, and if you want that to go to your son or your daughter or your cousin or whatever, you write that down on paper, you sign it and you date it. That's a good start towards a will. It's not an official will, but if you pass and they find that, they will carry out your orders. So it's important to put that down. I know a lot of us don't want to die. We don't want to think about dying, but it's probably going to happen. So you got to take some kind of a step to have this. And especially with Mr. Mellon, I think we have a big example there with the $500 million loss. I think we'd all agree, even if that went to some kind of charity we didn't agree with, it would be better off in the hands of that charity than it would doing nothing. And what's sad is that money's locked now. It's like the Wired 13 Bitcoins that they destroyed, or the 10,000 Bitcoins from the two pizzas. We're going to check in on that, and it's going to keep going up. His incredible loss. And I don't know him personally or anything about his background, but it's just a very sad thing to see such a loss. So I'd hope that the other people that are ridiculously rich right now, the CEO of Ripple, some of these other people, I hope that they have better backup plans than this guy had. And if they haven't developed one, or maybe they're listening or a friend of theirs listening, still a chance. You're still alive. You still know where your keys are. You don't have to let this money be lost for all time. It's very sad.
Yeah, and the thing is, imagine if you know, this is why it's important to do it properly, estate management, when it comes to crypto. Because imagine, you know, your family member finds this little letter. Maybe you wrote a letter. Yeah, it's a great first step, but they don't know anything about crypto, right? And where's the first thing they're going to go to? Is they're going to go to Reddit They're going to go to where are they going to go? Who are they going to find there to help them, with this key? Like, you don't want your relatives to then fall into, the pits that we've all probably fallen into when we were noobs with a substantial amount of money. And so it is really important to do it properly. And yeah, I would say, I mean, it's not like I'm getting anything for this, but I just think it's a very, very good read. I'm actually have to find the name of it, but the author is Pamela Morgan, and yeah, I'll pull up the link for it.
Yeah, I forget the title too. It's something like preserving your crypto assets or end of life planning for crypto or something. But she went through a lot of titles.
Yeah.
But it looks like this has been a pretty good Bitcoin talk show. If you guys would like to call us, you can Skype World Crypto Network, all one word. We'll try to keep the lines open for a little bit longer. But I'm about running out of things to talk about. Josh, you want to tell the people about Vaultoro while you're here? Just as a little side plug.
Yeah, sure. So Vaultoro, we're an exchange. We've been around for 3.5, nearly 4 years. We trade between Bitcoin and physical allocated bullion, so you don't need to trust a single third party with fiat. And the problem is you have two counterparty risks with fiat. You have the exchange, it could go bust, and then you lose money, and liquidators come in and just steal all your funds, eat it all up, and that's what happened to me in Mt. Gox. Or the bank that the exchange is using goes broke, or just freezes the account, or many things that can happen and do. With gold, we basically put allocated gold in your name as your property, bullion, in a high security Swiss vaulting facility, fully insured, fully audited, not like Tether. And it's not tokenized. So there's none of this like weird legal stuff. It's old school allocated bullion, and you can sell it back to crypto when you want using a full marketplace. So we don't set the price, the market, you guys are bidding and asking against each other. So it's really trying to find a fair price, and yeah, it's just it's a good way to try to secure some profits in something physical, gold. And we're working on Vaultoro 2.0, so we'll bring silver, platinum, palladium, plus some other maybe the top blue chip cryptos.
I think although it seems like a minor legal issue, the allocation there is a very important issue, that the gold is actually held in your name. So if Vaultoro, the exchange, went away, they would just go to the records and you would own that amount of gold. So I think that's a really great way that you guys have set it up.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. Yeah, that's a really, really important point. And this is actually why we still haven't tokenized gold, because you cannot, if it's tokenized, we have to allocate it to the company. That means if this, people are putting these tokens around that are valued, let's say 1 gram of gold is 1 token. If maybe a drug dealer gets busted and the cops go, where's that value held? Oh, it's at Vaultoro and it's allocated to us. They can just shut down the entire economy. Whereas right now, if someone does something, they couldn't really they couldn't shut us down for many, many laws. It's very old, 1,000-year-old laws of allocated bullion laws, especially out of London bullion markets. They could just shut down one account, that person's account. And this is very, very different to something like eGold in the 90s that had allocated to themselves and allowed people to move that value around amongst each other. So allocation, like you said, Tom, is absolutely very, very important. Yeah. But we're working on tokenizing, because I think tokenizing is cool. People are looking for a stable digital token, but it's still, we will not release it until we understand legally how we can allocate it to the private key, which is something that's really, really legally important.
And then the next question people always have is, will you send them their gold? But I think in most cases, it's probably going to be a sliver or something they'd have to carve off of a piece of a bar. So I don't think it's that efficient a thing. It's not really, if you want to buy directly gold, you go to just a gold dealer. This is more about holding kind of a virtual gold.
Yeah, I mean, it's physical, it's real, and we can send it to you. It's your gold, you can do with it what you want. It's just not the cheapest way to buy gold you can cuddle at home in your bed. It's really something that you want to buy and sell, and it stays in the vault. These are good delivery bars. These are investment grade good delivery bars. So they actually don't ever see the sun. They come from the ground to the smelter to the vault, and they just change ownership. Of course, you can take ownership of the whole bar. We deliver down to the gram, but it's also very hard depending on which country you're in to get it through certain customs. So what we've got some partnerships with gold companies in the States. So it's cheaper to actually sell the gold in the vault for crypto, and we send the crypto to the States. It bypasses so much nonsense, and then they send it locally. And gold is gold down to the atomic level. You know, it's a base metal, so it might not be the exact same atoms you're getting, but it's the same stuff. So yeah.
That does make much more sense to have a local gold dealer deal with it, because that's what they do. That's what they're best at.
Yeah, and the important thing is to have it audited. If you use a service like us that hold allocated gold, you always go something that's fully audited, and we use one of the largest auditors in the world, and insurance companies. And the insurance company, if the vault needs to be open for any reason, the insurance company gets notified. They give a window of time that vault can be open. There's a lot of protocol involved, and it's important. And when you see cowboys like Tether just coming in and really, like, it's really quite scary how much influence Tether has on the market. There's more trading volume on Tether sometimes than Bitcoin alone, and come off it. Do people really believe there's a bank account somewhere with $2.5 billion sitting on there? And even if there is, the banks are then there speculating with that 2.5 billion. So there's a definite reserve, fractional reserve going on anyway, whether it's there or not. But it's local. Where we got into Bitcoin to get away from fiat, and yet we're trusting something like Tether, which is
not to mention, I always thought the easiest way to shut it down would be to claim and seize their bank account. And the whole brilliance and genius of Bitcoin is that if I have a Bitcoin, it's mine, and you can't seize it. And once you have a Tether, the thing the Tether's linked to can be easily seized. I thought it was a non-starter from the beginning, but I guess they've made a lot of money printing them and trading them and what have you. So as long as there's money
really
to be
needing these stable tokens, I mean, especially if smart contracts are going to be able to do something. If there is a killer app for smart contracts, which there might be, I haven't seen one apart from multisig. If there is in the future, then it will want to be some sort of stable thing. If I'm paying my plumber and the smart contract doesn't release the funds until he's finished plumbing or whatever, then it should keep the amount that is being quoted, right? So there is some need for this thing called a stablecoin, and I think Bitcoin will become stable eventually. But I just think Tether is just a ridiculous show, and it's just sad that people are actually falling for it. Yeah.
Well, and if you like Tether, you're going to love USDC from Circle. It's the same exact project. You've heard about that, right? Because Circle now, they want to get in this business, and the stable coins. One of the reasons that Circle is saying that they need the stable coin is because let's say they want to charge you $10 worth of fees a month every month. So you put $100 in there, you got 10 months worth of fees. The problem is Bitcoin going up or down, they might not have the money to take your fees from that account. So instead, they would store your money in the USDC, which is, I don't know, Circle's version of Tether. And then they would be able to take your fees from that account. So I think that's where they're going with the stable coins, but we'll have to see how it goes.
USD crap, I think it stands for. I'm not sure.
Makes it easy title. But we're going to go ahead and head towards the end of the show. Thanks so much, Josh, for stopping by, being a guest. Thanks to all the callers. If you'd like, you can send Bitcoin to the address on your screen right now. We had some recent donations: 0.00729979, 0.00074, and our hero 0.5, who pretty much bought me a new computer. Thanks so much for your support. Thanks for checking out the Patreon on World Crypto Network, the Patreon on Mad Bitcoins. And although you don't want it and maybe you don't need it, you get another reading from my novella, To Satoshi with Love, a story. And if you miss the other parts of the story, it'll probably make no sense. So you need to rewind and go watch the other parts. But here's a little bit more that I'm just going to read out loud. And Josh, you can hang out if you want, but if you're busy, you got to go. So here we go. She chipped the paint off her desk with a razor blade. She didn't know where she had gotten the blade. Maybe one day she used it to open a package and just kept it on her pencil tray because it was useful. Maybe it was a reminder. There was always a way out. The paint was black, but the desk was white. She didn't mind the paint, but it was the chipping, and there were gaps. She didn't mind the gaps, but she just enjoyed the chipping. It helped distract her from the problem. She hated programming, but she also loved it. The blank cursor sat there blinking, waiting for its command, waiting for the next instruction. But at the moment, she didn't know what that instruction was. Hence the chipping, the endless chipping. Mara, we can get you a new desk, you know. This is a $55 million company, Derek said, interrupting her train of thought. Distraction, she thought. Distraction. Everything he said sounded like bragging. She just wanted to get back to work, back to thinking. Sure you could, but I like this one, she said with a smile. How goes the algorithm? He asked, not too subtly. It was, after all, the only reason he got up from his desk and walked over here, to check in. The rest of his time would be spent playing Halo 4 or whatever the latest shooter was on the TV with the rest of the bros, bragging about his latest conquest of Barbie, Brandy, or Kendra. The names seemed to blend together into an amalgam of emptiness. He sensed my silence as a sign to move on, but he still opened his big mouth. I hope you'll have some progress by tomorrow, because we here at Chain River don't have time for slacking. We get things done. I heard the PS4 boot up a few minutes later as I put my headphones back on and went to work on the chipping. Just another brief reading of To Satoshi with Love. Thanks so much to all our callers and everyone for giving us a thumbs up and a share. Thanks for Josh for stopping by and being a guest. And remember, you can add us on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word, and you can give us a call. We're trying out different time zones for the show right now. This was the morning show. Yesterday, we tried a morning, a midday, and a late show. I'm not sure we'll have the energy for that every day, but it is fun, and it's always a good show if we have callers and we can talk about things. Thanks so much to everybody who called, gave us a thumbs up and a share. Be sure to subscribe down below. And until next time, bye-bye.